Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here as always to talk about stuff. This week on the show, big week because were like a billion video game releases this week.
Yeah.
To be specific, 3 major ones.
Yeah.
And we have divided and conquered to cover 2/3 of those.
Yes.
I will be talking about Super Mario Odyssey.
And I will be talking about Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus.
My game's good.
My game's really good too.
Awesome. So
I suspect that there are no 2 more fucking completely different games you could possibly talk about than Super Mario Odyssey and Wolfenstein 2.
That said, if there was a point in Super Mario Odyssey where Mario went to the Nazi kingdom and was infiltrating tanks to blow up Nazi strongholds, it wouldn't surprise me that much.
And if there was a sequence in Wolfenstein 2 in which BJ just woke up and was in a fantasy cartoon kingdom with talking forks and shit, I could actually see that legitimately happening in that game.
Nice. So what we're saying is they're good games, they're also weird games.
Very fucking weird, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to a part in Mario today where I possessed a human.
I got to a part in Wolfenstein 2 where something so fucking insane happens that there's no way I could say it because it's a massive spoiler. But it's fucking insane.
All right, well, we will talk about those. That will be there. That's our spoiler-free take. You will hear our more spoilery, but not that spoilery. I mean, just more in-depth review. But we're not going to really spoil things, I don't think. You're not even done with Wolfenstein 2
yet. Yeah, no, I'm
so.
probably halfway through it, but it is very good.
So, but we will talk about both of those games at length later on in the show. Before then, we're going to talk some news. We're going to talk some stuff. There was big Doctor Who news this week, breaking right after we talked a ton of Doctor Who last week. That's really our only bit of housekeeping this week, which is that our 3rd Doctor Who bonus podcast for the month of October is out. It's on the Doctor Who story, The Daemons. And hey, if you still need something to watch on Halloween, you could do a lot worse than the Doctor Who serial, The Daemons.
That is very true. It is. You can loosely justify it because there are demons in it.
Yeah, there are more horror-based episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this one's fun. And we have a podcast on it. And next month we'll have a 4th Doctor podcast.
Yes, which is actually a more Halloween episode, but
Yeah, that one will be the brains of Morbius if you want to get a head start on that. So anyway, my only other piece of housekeeping is that when I was in the throes of deep anticipation for Mario Odyssey and didn't know what to do with myself to pass the time waiting for the game, I did wind up writing an article about my top 10 favorite Mario games, and you can read it on jonathanlack.com. And it's cool. It was fun. It was I never actually sat down and what would the 10 be? What would how would I rank them?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to do that.
Number 1, of course, being Hotel Mario.
Mario.
Yeah, everyone's favorite Mario game.
I like to go outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
Here and there. No, Hotel Mario is not on it, but I had fun with that. And also we can talk about this a little bit later. One of the most annoying trends I've seen in reviews of Mario Odyssey is people saying, "Finally, Mario's good again." And it's what did your outlet has given 10 out of 10 to every Mario game. And often deservingly. We know they're all good games, but it's people are it's the first real 3D Mario game since Sunshine. It's you forgot the Galaxy games? Am I alone thinking those were massive critical hits?
And then the other one is that people just seem to ignore the 3D Land and 3D World games, which also when those came out, 10 out of 10s across the board.
And they're great games. Yeah. And yes, not every Mario game is what every Mario fan wants. But the history of that series is so rich, that's why I wanted to do that article, because I also think I have a pretty broad love of Mario. There's not one type of game I like.
Right.
And the only thing I think will piss people off on that list is I don't have Sunshine on it, and I'm sorry.
Sunshine's not that good.
Sunshine's not that good. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
If they want to do an HD remake for Switch, I'll play it. But until then, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
All right.
Even if they do that, I wouldn't. No.
All right.
I wouldn't go back. I would never go back.
But that's our housekeeping. Sean, let's do some stuff.
All right.
I've got 2 pieces of stuff.
Okay.
One of these I might save for the first piece on news, because it's actually also a news thing. But my stuff is just more Doctor Who stuff. Mm-hmm. I've had to take a pause on my 3rd Doctor rewatch because my streaming service does not have the next episode, and I'm waiting for a DVD to come in from the UK. So I'm doing this mostly legally. So because Yes. Anyway, but I also like wanted the DVD because it's Day of the Daleks and they have a special like 90-minute movie version of it on there and stuff. So anyway, but I've been plowing ahead with my modern Doctor Who rewatch because I'm doing this ranking of all the Moffat episodes. I'm into the Capaldi era.
Congratulations.
Even better than I remembered.
Yeah. Very fucking good.
But I wanted to mention a little bit like the end of the Matt Smith run, which I got through. That was the most interesting thing for me on this whole rewatch, was contextualizing all of Matt Smith's run, which is just so up and down and like weird in that really it's 3 seasons, but it feels like 5 seasons because 2 of them have 2 parts.
Yeah.
And like there's that weird stylistic shift in the last 8 episodes where he has an awesome new costume and an awesome new TARDIS and an awesome new companion who won't really become awesome until she's with the next Doctor.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's weird. Like you have an episode like Hyde, which I think is just one of the best modern Doctor Who episodes. It's just so weird and out there and fun.
Yeah.
And then Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, which is easily the worst Matt Smith episode. I like, not a question in my mind. You've got episodes like Cold War that are boring, or Crimson Horror that are boring and weird, but like none of those offend me in the way Journey to the Center of the TARDIS does, which is the most unpleasant episode of Doctor Who I've seen this side of Love and Monsters.
Yeah. I think that is like the operating word there is unpleasant, because that's
it's a gross episode.
Because it has that whole subplot of the 2 brothers have convinced the youngest brother that he's a robot, like android, when he's actually just like one of their brothers with like a prosthetic or something. It's like, what is that? Like, how is that a weird random subplot in this episode that also, like, you give no attention to? It's like one of the cruelest things I've ever seen any character on Doctor Who do ever.
Any character on television do. Because it's not like, oh, last week he got this prosthetic and we decided to fuck with him. It's since he was a little kid.
Yeah.
It's messed up. And that whole episode also underlines, I think, the worst part of Series 7B, which is that the Doctor is so manipulative towards Clara, and I don't think it's supposed to be written that awful, but like, he is a monster to her in so many ways. And I do think Moffat realized that after the episodes were done, because there's such a conscious turn in that whole relationship when Capaldi comes in, and the entire "I'm not your boyfriend" speech.
Yeah.
That was so... it annoyed me a little at the time. I watched that now in deep breath, and I'm like, he needed to say that. Like, 100% needed to say that. And it's interesting. But the 50th, always been good.
Yep.
Still good. And the Time of the Doctor, I did not know how to feel about it at the time. That's Matt Smith's last episode, because, I mean, there's just the weight of expectation and all these other things, and it's a very weird last episode for a Doctor. It's not a traditional, like, Doctor regeneration story at all, where, like, he, you know, sacrifices himself for a small person, and, you know, not like a little person, I mean, like, you know, to him a small person.
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, it's not that kind of story. I think it's a really good story. It's actually fairly high in my Moffat rankings, like within the top 15 or so. And it's just, I like that it's so different, and boy, did they nail the last scene.
Yeah, I really like Time of the Doctor as well, because I've seen it, I think I've only seen it twice, but both times I've seen it, I like the first time I watched it, it is that, like, you know, an episode like that has so much going into it, and that one in particular is also just like stuffed with with just like all this different stuff throughout his whole run. But it does, I think, on a rewatch, it holds up really well as being a really sort of interesting climax to a very weird run in the history of the show overall.
But a good run.
Oh yeah,
a lot of good episodes in there. And Matt Smith, I mean, that's the biggest thing, because this is the kind of thing, you know, we're going to do our Moffat retrospective, and that's more about the writing. Matt Smith absolutely got better as he went along.
Yeah.
And not that he ever started bad. I just mean, you just saw him grow as an actor, and that last season he is phenomenal in. And I think you could absolutely make the argument that Time of the Doctor is his best hour on the show. Just the amount of range he has to show in that episode.
Yeah.
Sometimes under good prosthetics, sometimes under really bad prosthetics. There's 2 pieces of old age makeup. One of them is good, one of them is not.
Right.
But yeah, it's an interesting era. And then you get Deep Breath, which is another episode I was very down on when it aired, and I liked a lot more now. And I think part of that is that episode is like the birth canal into the Capaldi era.
Sure.
And it's not the smoothest transition, but it's so necessary.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, like, not as extreme as this, but of Robot, which is the first Tom Baker story, where Deep Breath very much feels like it's a Matt Smith episode that Peter Capaldi has been dropped into and has to sort of, like, form himself, and then they're like little like bits and pieces of like that brilliant scene where he is in the alleyway with the broken mirror and stuff, is like, who found me this face. Like there are moments in there where you see like what the Capaldi era is going to be more like, but then it's also mixed with Madame Vostra and all of that stuff. It's a really all over the place kind of episode, but I like it.
Oh, and Capaldi's so good in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the biggest problem with Deep Breath is it's a 50-minute episode, like blown up into an 80-minute episode.
Yeah.
It's the longest episode of Doctor Who, and Jesus does it feel it.
Yeah.
But then you get into the Dalek, and I forgot how good that one was.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that, because at first I was like, I'm probably not going to rank the Moffat co-written episodes. Oh, I'm ranking them.
Okay.
Because we're going completionist for this ranking.
Okay, shit. Yeah. So that gets a lot more Capaldi episodes in there then.
It does. And it means like there's things like, Heaven Sent and The Doctor Falls. Knew I was going to have to figure out how high to put those. The Girl Who Died, I now have to figure out.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Things like that. So anyway, did Time Heist today. Like that episode, relatively easy to rank.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like the best or the worst episode.
Yeah, it's a very normal episode of Doctor Who.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Sean, what stuff have you been up to?
Not much other than Wolfenstein II. I have not finished Neo, because Neo is a pretty long game, but I did put more time into it. I don't have a huge amount to add on to my discussion from last time, other than one thing I realized after that podcast that I forgot to mention that I really like about Neo is the animation in that game is really fucking awesome. And it's one of my favorite parts about unlocking new moves is just seeing like what do the animations look like and how cool are they, because that team has a really good sense of like really, really snappy animations that are great for gameplay, but also have a lot of oomph behind them. And there's one attack in particular that's this counter with the spear that you do, that every time I see the animation and with like the accompanying sound effect, it just like gets me pumped. Is you twirl your spear and sort of like grab the enemy's weapon with the end of the spear, and then your character sort of like pivots and leans forward and puts the back shaft of the spear against the other person's shoulder and just slams them into the ground. Every time I do that, it feels fucking awesome. And that's such an important thing for that kind of like third-person character action game, is to nail the feel of that animation stuff. And it's the same thing with the Iaido like quick draw katana attack, where you draw your sword and kind of attack the enemy with the same motion. All the animations that have to deal with that you can tell how much these people just sort of like sat down and watched the last scene of Sanjuro over and over and over and over again to get the animation like fucking perfect on how he draws the katana and then sheathes it again. That stuff in Neo I think is really excellent and is worth noting. If you're someone who's playing that game or has played that game and didn't sort of pay attention to what they're doing with some of the animation stuff, I think it's worth looking at and really noting the extra little detail they put in there, and the sort of the attention to physicality that is there, that it's not like over the top or cartoonish. It feels like very much understanding the actual kind of like martial art and like physics being applied to how to slam a person to the ground and leveraging your weight and stuff like that. And it looks really good.
Nice. You talking about that actually reminded me of something I didn't put on the outline that I need to mention, which is that you talked about Neo last week. I talked about Fire Emblem Warriors. I have finished that game.
Oh, right.
So I wanted to mention it really quick. I don't know if I have a ton to add. Like, all the gameplay stuff I talked about remains great on to the end. There's some really creative level design in the last couple fights of that game that is very, very fun. But the one thing I wanted to say is that I talked a lot of shit about the story of that game last time.
Right.
Had about the halfway mark. It does get better. Like,
okay.
It's never like, the best Fire Emblem story or the main reason to play the game. But it does, maybe 2/3 of the way through, transition out of, someone comes through a portal, there's a misunderstanding, they fight, into now the whole team is together, and there's a common adversary, and you have to go fight them, and then it just settles into a rhythm that's fun. All the characters are together, kind of bouncing off one another, and it's what you want out of it. And you get to the end, and there's like a suitable sense of stakes, and you fight a big dragon, because it's a Fire Emblem game, and roll credits, and then you open History Mode, which is a really interesting part of the game that I'm not completely sure how I feel about, and I have put on the side for now because I'm playing Mario. But History Mode is like, there's a series of maps that look like, normal Fire Emblem maps, and you really just move around and pick what kind of, like a stage you're going to play, and you have to clear enough of these stages that you can get to the big boss on that and clear this whole area, and they ramp up in difficulty. It's kind of like a challenge mode. It reuses like stages from the base game, but with new objectives and stuff, and each History Mode map is built around some story scenario from one of the Fire Emblem games, although it's a little half-assed to me. Like the one with Fire Emblem Awakening is the end of Fire Emblem Awakening where you're fighting the fell dragon Grima, which is fine, except that like the enemies on the stages are like just one of your teammates, but now they're the bad guy over there, and they don't explain it. So there's things like that. This is also, though, where you get some of the characters from games who are not in the main plot line, like Lindis. There's one from Fire Emblem GBA that's there, so that's kind of cool that it's represented. And you have the field like music on that map, which is nice.
Nice.
I have not unlocked Lindis yet.
Oh, well.
Because she's so cool, you have to be a pretty high level to get to those fights. So
I guess that's one way to approach it. The other way to approach it would be just make her the only playable character.
I agree.
In the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should have Lindis from the beginning.
Yes.
I think it should just be like Fire Emblem GBA, where you start Fire Emblem Warriors as a lowly farm girl named Lindis.
Yeah.
And you go on a battle and people are coming through portals. Just do it that way.
Exactly.
Don't need these new characters.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah. No, anyway, so the history mode, like, it's very grindy, but if you like the gameplay, it's more of it, and it's a chance to, like, level up your characters and get better with them and get better gear and stuff like that. So it's fun. And I'm interested to see they're going to add some DLC and some new fighters, and I went ahead and grabbed the season pass because it was pretty cheap, and I think it'll be fun to, like, have the new characters and do some of the new maps and stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'll talk about that game more at some point. But it's a good game. I think, as a Switch release, you can tell it's being very overshadowed at the moment.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's a little too bad. Like, I think I kind of don't understand why this wasn't like a January, February release from Nintendo, because I think it would get a lot more attention, because a lot of the big outlets didn't even get to having a review of this game. Like, they're just too busy. And it's a really good game. It's a worthwhile game. If you like a Warriors game, if you like Fire Emblem, you'll like this, you know? One or the other or both. So, you know, but also, like, if you have a Switch right now, I'm going to tell you to play Mario.
Right.
Like, that's the thing. I like Fire...
fuck that Mario game. You guys got to get with Fire Emblem Warriors.
Yeah, no, it's very niche. Like, I cannot imagine a person on the planet who would not enjoy Mario Odyssey, whereas Fire Emblem Warriors is going to be a certain level of niche.
Right.
So, you know. Anyway, but that's my stuff. You want to move on to some news?
What's going on in the news, Jonathan?
My first piece of news is also a piece of stuff.
Okay.
But they kind of go together because you probably read about this because it's hilarious, which is that Sonic Forces got a demo in the Japanese Nintendo eShop for the Switch, and later came out in the Japanese PSN store as well. So if you have a Japanese account on either of those systems, the PS4 or the Switch, which are very easy to create, especially because this is free, you don't have to deal with any payment stuff.
Right.
Then you can get this demo. On the Switch, it's just in Japanese. On the PS4, you have to download it from the Japanese shop, but I guess you can turn it into English if you want. Either way, not going to be an impediment to understanding the game.
Right.
It's a Sonic game. Also, the demo is 3 minutes long.
Yeah, so maybe not worth the effort of going
Yes.
and like signing into my Japanese PSN account and finding the fucking demo,
And
downloading the demo, which would take longer than playing the demo.
And I was one of the people genuinely surprised by this. Because I just saw, like, someone on Twitter said they just put this up in the shop. And I went, okay, I had not created a Japanese Nintendo account yet, but I'm like, I'll do that. Took like 5 minutes. Put it on my Switch. I was so excited to, like, try this game out for 2 reasons. I've not played any of Sonic Forces. Wanted to see what it was like. And 2, I wanted to see how it ran on the Switch, because I would always kind of prefer to have a game on the Nintendo Switch at this point. And I knew it was going to run at like 30 frames, not 60, but if otherwise it looked good, then I would be fine with that for having it on the Switch. And, you know, I start the game up, and I start with a modern Sonic stage, and it's pretty cool. He's running around, and we're jumping, and there's rock music, and I'm like, this is Sonic. And then it ends, and there's a trailer for Sonic Forces. I'm like, why'd that happen? That's weird. And then I went to the next stage, which was a classic Sonic stage, and it's a little boss with Eggman. And I'm doing that. I'm like, okay, this is nice. It's like a 3D version of a classic Eggman boss. It's, you know, whatever. It's fine. And then it ends. And I'm like, what did they do? And then there's an avatar stage. Right. And that's at least a little better. You can kind of pick from different guns, and it has randomly generated avatars. So that's kind of cool. And you go through that, and this is the coolest stage yet. It looks like something like really like, you know, cyberpunk, like from Sonic Heroes or something. And you're getting into it, and then it ends in 1 minute. And I'm like, okay, it's all in Japanese text. I can read a lot of this. Maybe there's something I'm missing. And I go online, it's like, nope. Everyone's making fun of this demo because it is the shittiest demo ever. Not because the gameplay's bad or it looks bad, any of that. It's because it's a demo that allows you to play a maximum of 3 minutes of the game. Over and over again, you can play those 3 minutes as much as you want, but, you know, unless you're like a crazy speedrunner, you're not going to get through these levels. And I do wonder what is, like, that's bad marketing, right?
Yeah, that's like, you don't want people to leave your demo feeling annoyed, not because of anything that has to do with the game, but just because the constraints of the demo are so ludicrous that there's no way to be anything but annoyed at it.
Yeah, like, don't download this demo. If you're super curious, you can. You will get no feeling for what the game is actually like. You can go watch a trailer and get a better, and just hold a controller in your hands, and you'll get a better feel for it. You know, like even my wish of like seeing how it ran technically on the Switch, it looked nice, but it's 3 minutes. I can't really tell. Like, maybe later in a level, something crazy happens and the frame rate goes to shit. I don't know. It wasn't that helpful.
Because it's not just that it's like 3 minutes, it's like 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Yes.
Which is like sit down with any video game, pause it, fucking start a 1 minute timer and play the video game and see how much stuff you do. It's like, unless you're playing a like weird mobile game or like an old arcade shooter or something that's designed to be played in like super tiny quick bursts and you die almost immediately, you're not gonna get fucking anywhere. Like, the 1 minute is like, I've shot 3 people in Wolfenstein. That's nothing.
It's insane. And I loved, there was on Twitter, someone from Sega of America said, we apologize, this demo was not intended for North American players. It's like, what does that say about your Japanese audience? Yeah. They're fine with 3 minutes. What do you mean it's not like, I get it, it's in Japanese, but that's not the problem. No one has a problem with that.
Yeah.
Like, the Japanese voices were really cool. I hope they're an option on the US version. But like, it's just bizarre, the whole thing. So I would love to do a bigger, like, you know, Sean's Beta Corner and tell you about Sonic Forces. I really can't. It was a 3 minute demo, and I don't understand it. I'm still looking forward to the game. It looks sweet. It's only $40, you know. I'll buy it.
Maybe that's their strategy for the demo, is once you've played it under the constraint of only being able to play it 1 minute at a time, just how liberating is it going to feel when you can just play it as much as you want if you have the actual game? Like, what a great motivator that is.
Yeah, so who knows? Like I said, if you for some reason want to play it, you can. It's easy to download, but it's bizarre. And I've had it sitting on my, you know, Switch home screen next to Mario Odyssey for a few days now, waiting to delete it, like, and I haven't yet because I'm like, maybe I want to look at it again before the podcast, but it's like every time I look at it, I just kind of chuckle a little bit. It doesn't really make me angry.
Yeah.
I just want to know, like, I want to get in the head of the person who decided that.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's like, just pick one level and let us play the whole level and no one would complain.
Yeah, like, it would be a, like, insubstantial demo, but there's not a lot to argue about there. It's like, okay, fair enough. You gave us, like, the first level of the game or something, we just play through that level and then you show me your trailer and that's the end of the demo. Like, fine.
Because it's also like a gigabyte. Because it's got the whole levels in there.
Right.
It's just you can't play them. It's so bizarre. Anyway, let's talk about some cool news, Sean. Doctor Who Series 11 is coming next year. This is the 11th series in the 15th year of Modern Who, if we all just want to feel old around this table.
Right, yeah.
Like, Sean, at what point does Chris Eccleston count as classic Doctor Who?
Let's not have this conversation.
It looks like classic Doctor Who, because I went back and watched some of those.
Oh, yeah. There's a stark difference between Doctor Who right now and Doctor Who for fucking 2005.
Yes. But anyway, it's coming next year. Jodie Whittaker is playing the 13th Doctor. Chris Chibnall is running the show. He was the head of Broadchurch, or wrote Broadchurch. And of course, Jodie Whittaker was on that show. We've known all of this before, but we were waiting kind of for details because they're going to have to start shooting this thing soon, if it's going to air at all next year.
Yeah.
And they're in pre-production, and they announced this week, actually right after our last podcast went up, which was annoying.
Yeah.
The regular cast, not just like the companion, the regular cast for Doctor Who Series 11. And we have 3 new companions in the TARDIS, plus one other person who we do not have details on. And that will be Bradley Walsh as Graham, who is like an older white gentleman, Tossin Cole as Ryan, and Mandeep Gill as Yasmin, the last 2 sort of being younger in age. Of course, also Jodie Whittaker there as the Doctor. And then I had to just quote this text because they didn't say anything else about this person, but also joining the series in a recurring role is Sharon D. Clarke. So, don't know who she's playing.
Yeah.
We'll find out. We know there will at least be a 4-person regular cast on Doctor Who Series 11. It will premiere this fall, they said, with a feature-length premiere and a 10-episode total run. So we are getting a cut in episode run. It was 13 for everything up through Matt Smith's last episode, and then it was 12 episodes per year for Capaldi, and now it's going to be 10 episodes per year, because this is how all TV is moving.
Yeah.
They have said the episodes will be a little longer, at like a regular 50-minute length, which is not that different, to be honest. A lot of Moffat episodes ran up to about 50 minutes. But we know it's coming, 10 episodes. The first one will be long. They're probably going to do it in theaters. But I think the most exciting thing is the Doctor's going to be rolling with a posse again.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice because it's something that used to be very, very common if you listen to our Doctor Who classic podcast, you will know that the First Doctor and the Second Doctor always rolled with at least a posse of 2 companions, if not 3 companions. And then they sort of tried it again at the end of the Fourth Doctor's last season. And then from almost all the Fifth Doctor's run, he had a posse of 3. For the First and Second Doctor, the posse worked really well. For the Fifth Doctor, it did not. For a lot of different reasons that we haven't gotten to yet in the classic podcast series.
And I also think it's worth mentioning the Third Doctor, while they don't all go in the TARDIS with him, he does have a regular, 5-person cast.
Yeah, it's a different setup because he has the unit cast, which do not go with him when he has his space adventures. But yes, for most of the stories, there's a larger supporting cast that continues and evolves over the course of the Third Doctor's era. So so Doctor Who does have this interesting history with playing around with this larger supporting cast thing that's bigger than the sort of canonized Fourth Doctor style, one companion that's an attractive young woman and that kind of thing. I think it's a good change probably, and just it gives a lot of. It's interesting to me that it feels like Chris Chibnall very much him coming on and doing this. It's this feels like he's making his Doctor Who. And that's good. It feels like he's not just trying to sort of follow the model that Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat made for what new Doctor Who was structured as. It very much feels like he's going off and doing his own thing with it, which is, I think, needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally psyched about this. I don't know these actors well, but they look cool. And, I liked seeing the whole cast together just in a picture. They're not obviously in costume or anything. Right. But it was just, I like Doctor Who when there's kind of a cast, most of the Russell T Davies era was very Fourth Doctor-esque, one Doctor, one companion, sometimes friends, for the specials and stuff and the finales. But mostly that was it. Moffat tended to have a 3-person cast. But for 2 years with Capaldi, that wasn't the case at all. So it kind of went back and forth.
And then that 3-person cast was a very much episode by episode kind of thing. You know, Rory was there in concentrated bursts for bits, but was never felt
no.
I still have a hard time sometimes feeling like Rory is a proper companion, even though I think he technically is.
I think he technically is, but he's Amy's husband, not the Doctor's best friend.
Right, yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, it almost feels, it's he's a companion by, this chain of, Amy's the companion, and Rory is Amy's companion.
He's a
so he's companion with the Doctor, through this, logical series.
I have the perfect word for it. He's a companion-in-law.
Okay, yes.
Yes,
exactly.
That's what it is.
Yes, that is 100% what it is.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I really like going back to especially First Doctor stories where there's a whole kind of family in the TARDIS together, and just that can be a really fun thing. And I think we talked about this, that when you have our first female Doctor, you kind of have to consider what are the gender roles of the companion now, because it's so been about male lead, female co-lead. And that's been that way for decades. Even when you do expand a little bit and have, a 3-person cast, as we said, Matt Lucas in this last season is not the main companion.
Right.
So you kind of have to reconsider it. And I think this was my suggestion at the time, is that I thought, my instinct was I think there should be kind of a posse on the TARDIS. And we have that, so we'll have 2 women, one of them being the Doctor, 2 men. I like that the only white guy on the show is a companion. I think that will be a fun, different thing. Yeah, Bradley Walsh, not old, but he's older. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. It's a very diverse TARDIS cast, which I think is cool, because Doctor Who has actually done pretty decently since it came back on diversity in different areas. So that's just good. And I just think, and more than anything, it's what you said, which is Chris Chibnall clearly has some kind of vision for this.
Yeah.
It's not just Sally. Sally's our new companion.
Yeah. Who's Sally? Well, she's a kind of spunky 20-something young London woman. That's who Sally is. Great, we are really going outside the box with our companions today.
It was also an interesting confirmation that he's making a clearly very clean break with the Moffat era.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of back and forth on whether Pearl Mackie would be returning. And it seemed like she was not completely sure on that either, or had to lie about it, as people have to do in these situations. Right. But no, maybe the characters from the Moffat run will show up, but in the main cast, Pearl Mackie is done at Christmas, Capaldi's done at Christmas, Matt Lucas is not returning to the main cast. So this is clearly kind of like when we went from RTD to Moffat. New people all over the place. Yeah. And that's totally fine. It's just interesting. Doctor Who's going to look very different a year from now, which is exciting.
Yeah, and that's the way I kind of want it to be. I think it's typically most interesting to me when you have this, this is this era of the show, and being able to look at that. And, it's one of the things of, when you think about, the 5th, 6th, 7th Doctors and, that period of the show. Like, it is this John Nathan Turner era that felt like it stuck around too long, and is like, I think one of the reasons why the show sort of eventually had to be canceled was they just failed to continue to make this sort of creative break that they had done every 3 to 5 years previously since 1963. And I definitely think it's like, as much as the last like 3 or 4 years with Peter Capaldi and Stephen Moffat, as much as that has been like some of the best Doctor Who there has ever been, it is, you have to move on and you have to change, and that's the spirit of Doctor Who. And when you resist that, that's when the show gets bad.
Absolutely. We've talked about this, going out on a high note from one era and then getting to have an all new era. Like, that's best of both worlds, I think, for fans.
Yes, yeah.
You know. But I'm just so curious to see what Jodie Whittaker's first episode is going to look like, because it's a real challenge to have to do everything fresh in your first episode, and yet it's produced by far the 2 best Doctor introduction stories.
Yeah.
You know, in Spearhead from Space and The 11th Hour. And no reason to believe we won't get another great one, because sometimes you've got to put your best foot forward. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. I'm also hopeful that this change of going down to 10 episodes means that we will just get a season a year for a while, because that has been maybe the most exhausting thing about being a Doctor Who fan for like since like season 6 or something. It's just like, fucking just give me just fucking 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, 10 weeks a year that is just Doctor Who for 10 weeks, and then you're off, and then next year there's 10 more weeks of Doctor Who. Just fucking air this like a fucking TV show, for God's sakes. This whole like split season and like taking a year off and with like a Christmas special. It's like, it's just hard to like stay into the show, even as a dedicated fan. You have to like work yourself back up when it comes back on. And if you're a casual fan, I have to imagine it's hard to get into the swing of things when the show is as irregular as it's been for a while.
I'm really curious about the 10-episode run in a couple ways. I mean, clearly Doctor Who is not a cheap show anymore. Not that it ever was relative to everything, but like, it's got a very big budget these days. You are having a much larger cast now, which just necessitates that more money is going to the people and not the behind-the-scenes stuff. You know, Chris Chibnall ran Broadchurch, but by ran Broadchurch, I mean, he wrote every episode of it. He did not work with a writer's team on that. So I'm curious how much of the writing he's planning on doing versus other people. Hopefully, to me, this means that 10 episodes, you don't need Mark Gatiss to write an episode. I love the guy. Right. He's like, I would love to have a beer with Mark Gatiss and talk to him about Doctor Who.
Oh, absolutely. He's like one of the people like in probably like top 10 to 15 of people on the planet I would like to like talk to Doctor Who with. Mark Gatiss is up there. And
if you ever want to put him on the show, which they're doing at Christmas again, I will always, he's a great actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't think he's a good Doctor Who writer. And, you know, God bless him for trying so many times. But maybe like, you know, these 10 can be hyper polished. I'm curious what that means for 2-parters. If you really even have room for that at this point, if you're only 10 a year. But, you know, that's an interesting thing to me. I bemoan that, like, the lowering episode counts across all of TV has finally reached Doctor Who. But, you know, if you go back long enough, Doctor Who's always been lowering its episode counts.
Yeah, it is something that, like, when you look at... Because there was something that I was actually looking at for our Third Doctor story, was I was curious, like, well, how many episodes were they producing for a year, each year? And then I looked at, like, for the First Doctor and Second Doctor, it was, like, 20 more than what the Third Doctor was doing. It's like, that's fucking crazy. And then eventually you get to the Seventh Doctor, you're like, oh, right, they were making, like, 15, 30-minute episodes a year by the time that show was done.
Because I've been watching through the Third Doctor, and it's 25 a year, or 26, which is a lot by today's standards, but was already way lower by those standards for Doctor Who. And that was high relative to, as you say, the Seventh Doctor. So it's all relative. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited. I'm glad we finally have some news. I think they've been playing this, you know, a little on the down low because Moffat's and Capaldi's run is not done yet, technically.
Yeah, it's probably as awkward to try to like prepare press releases and stuff when, you still have that Christmas special is the next thing coming up.
Right, but obviously if they're going to hit an August transmission or fall, however they'd find that, then they've got to start shooting this very soon. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting. I hope we hear more cool stuff, and I look forward to meeting all of these characters.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, other news from that same day, Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Yep.
The beloved Persona spin-off series. I'm kidding.
The SMT people will find you and they will fucking fillet you. Those people are scary.
I know.
Don't fuck with them.
The series from which Persona was born.
Yeah.
There we go. From which we have all of what we are to owe.
I mean, really, I'm Megami Tensei or die. Like, once they went Sheen, it's like, nope, too far. That was a step too far. I'm just the original novella or whatever. That's how far I go with it.
But Shin Megami Tensei 5 was officially announced for Nintendo Switch. It is a Nintendo Switch exclusive. It had a very cool 1.5-minute teaser. This is the product we saw at the Switch unveiling in January, which they just called Shin Megami Tensei Mystery Project or whatever. But now it is announced it is a Switch exclusive. Shin Megami Tensei 4, for context, was a 3DS exclusive, so clearly a lot of Atlas is on the Nintendo train, and Persona has an exclusivity agreement over with PlayStation, which is fine, but it's just kind of interesting. That's like the odd man out now for Atlas. And it looks really cool. It's all set in like a dystopian Tokyo. It looks awesome.
It looks very Shin Megami Tensei. That is, those games have always kind of been this post-apocalyptic Tokyo kind of thing.
Yep. And, very much rounds out a growing JRPG lineup for the Switch that is very interesting. This is obviously a big get. It looks great. I've not played a full Shin Megami Tensei game myself yet, but this is absolutely one I will probably check out, especially since it's on the Switch.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Looks cool.
Yeah, I tried to get into Shin Megami Tensei 3 and just kind of bounced off of that game. That was a long time ago. That was around the time I played Persona 3. Yeah. I tried that, and they're very different than Persona. So if you dive into this, I would just say do not expect it to be like Persona.
No, and I'm not, but I think it's interesting. I've always wanted to try Shin Megami Tensei 4 on the 3DS. It's always on sale, but I just have never had the time to dive into that.
Yeah.
But it's a side of the JRPG world I would like to know more about.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting because, the Nintendo Switch has a very high profile. I'm curious to see how this is covered when it comes out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Okay, here's a fun one. Sean, the Kinect. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the Kinect. Wow, yeah.
It is dead. Microsoft, wrapped it in a sheet. They put a bullet through its head, and they buried it out back. The Kinect is finally dead.
Well, how am I going to use my full body to control the video games I play, Jonathan?
You can probably still find one on eBay, and there are plenty of copies in a landfill somewhere of Kinect Adventures.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Kinect Adventures, Dance Central, the Star Wars Kinect game, which a lot of people dug out clips from that when the Han Solo movie title came out, because there's that weird Han Solo song from Star Wars Kinect.
But no, the real story here, Microsoft announced they are ending production of the Kinect worldwide.
Yeah.
They'll sell through whatever units they have left, but the Kinect is going to the same graveyard in the sky as the Virtual Boy or the PlayStation Move, which I guess is actually still back because of the virtual or reality stuff.
Right, yeah.
Just all the bad video game peripherals. It is going to video game heaven or hell, depending on how you look at it, with them. And I just had a nice hearty chuckle when I read this.
They're going to seal Phil Spencer back in his sarcophagus, because it's you have done your mission, Phil. You have done it. You killed the Kinect. You ended the reign of terror that was set up by Don Matrick at the launch of the Xbox One, the couple of years of the 360 preceding that. And now we must seal you again and awaken you when another horrible video game peripheral and set of policies comes to threaten the Xbox brand.
It's something I do want to talk about for a minute, because I find it super interesting. I totally pinpoint the launch of the Kinect as the moment where the 360 just fell off a cliff for me, where, you could see so many things going the wrong way for the Xbox 360. The Kinect was one of them. The Kinect was bad. It was a sham product. Yeah. It had sham video games. The whole thing was awful. That was coupled with some of the really bad UI fixes for the 360 at the time. And then you had the launch of the Xbox One, which was all in on the Kinect, and they had to rip that thing out of there like it was an extra limb, and sell it for $100 off, and now here we are on the eve of the Xbox One X being, the next flagship Xbox product being announced, and not only will it be launching without the Kinect will be dead and buried by the time it gets to your door.
Yeah, this is the second version of the Xbox One that does not even have a Kinect port on it, because they ripped that out of the S, and it's obviously did not put it back in for the X. So it's if you have a Kinect and you want to use it on these new ones, you have to get a USB dongle, which they are also not selling those anymore. Yeah. So if you did not get those, shit out of luck.
It's crazy, and I never had a Kinect for my Xbox One, because by the time I bought it, they were already unbundled, and I got it around the time of the Master Chief Collection, so that would have been the second year.
Yeah, that was 2014.
Yeah, 2014. So, and I have never, there was obviously some UI wonkiness where the Kinect was supposed to be, but I never really missed it. And I don't know of a single game on the Xbox One that used motion controls. I know of ones that used voice controls, and people swear they worked well. And I will always retort with, why couldn't they be built into the system itself?
Yeah.
Just explain that.
You know this, I can plug a fucking microphone into this controller. Like, if you could design this to work that way, that's how Tom Clancy's End War worked on the Xbox 360. That's a video game that nobody remembers.
Yeah, so anyway, the Kinect, it just feels like, I mean, God, the Kinect probably predated our podcast by a little bit, but not by much. So, like, it's been a long time, and we have talked, I think, about the ups and downs, the downs of the Kinect. There were no ups. There was the brief, it sold a lot in the first week or two, and then never sold another one.
And then there was, like, the question mark of the Kinect 2.0 of, like, well, are they going to do it this time? Like, there was a slight possibility, and then you heard everything else, and then people got their hands on it. It was like, yeah, the voice commands work okay, but there still doesn't seem to be any real thing to do with the actual camera part, which is the big part of the Kinect, is it's a fucking IR camera that's just pointed at you all the time, that you're supposed to be able to, control your games with your whole body, and nobody used that because the technology didn't work that well, and it also just seems like a very hard technology to try to design a video game around.
But, like, the Kinect being dead feels like the last piece of the aftershock of everything that happened.
Yeah.
But it is, like, a significant thing to consider that this is the product that almost ate one of the three major branches of home console gaming alive.
Yeah, and it took them 4 years because this is 2017, like, where next month will be the 4th year anniversary of the Xbox One coming out, which, if you want to talk about feeling old,
yes,
there you go. But yeah, like, it took them a long time from ripping that thing out of the bundle to just saying, like, we're not making these anymore.
And they still have not fully recovered. The UI has come a long way. I don't think you'll ever be able to get it in, like, the perfect state of, like, what would we have done if this had never been part of it?
Yeah.
If we had had a complete fresh slate. But we're going to see, the big question is how much the Xbox One X and some of the things they're trying can really revitalize the brand. I will still point to the fact that other than Forza Motorsport 7, there are no major Xbox exclusives this year.
Yeah.
And none that I know of on the horizon other than Crackdown, which has been, like, delayed indefinitely or something.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the bigger question. But the Kinect is responsible for a big portion of the corporate, misidentity that led to the current Xbox troubles.
Yeah.
And, at least as you say, Phil Spencer he can go to bed at night and look at, like, a picture of a smashed Kinect and say, my work is done.
Yeah.
I have done the job.
He has done what we called him to do.
Yes. All right. In other news, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp was announced this week for iOS and Android. This is the next in Nintendo's initiative of smartphone games, announced at a little Nintendo Direct, which I did not watch because I don't particularly care about this.
Yeah.
But
it feels like history has come full circle in Animal Crossing, which created the notion in, like, a very different context, but of that, like, kind of, like, real timer, like, you have to wait for stuff to complete and all that stuff, that then was something that mobile games started using as, like, a gate for that you could pay microtransactions. Be like, well, it's going to take 24 hours for, like, this fucking house to be built or whatever. You could wait 24 hours, or you could throw us a nickel, buddy, and this could just be built. And now Animal Crossing, that birthed some of those ideas, again, in a different context. But it's still, I think you can kind of trace some of those there. It has now come to be mobile and roost on its throne.
Beyond that, I don't know if I have much to say about this. It looks like Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes to me, in the sense that it's a Nintendo smartphone game that looks like polished, well made for what it is, will probably be more gross and shallow than it looks now when it's actually out in the world. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and then we'll all look at it and be like, I wish I was just playing an actual Animal Crossing game.
Sure.
And, I look at this and I'm like, I hope this is a sign that Animal Crossing on the Switch is right around the corner. And it probably is. Nintendo's not stupid. They know what they have.
Yeah.
But, like, and really these smartphone games for them are more than anything a way to get their brands into the public consciousness and drum up support and, like, interest in their games and software and whatnot. It's also a way to make a shit ton of money off microtransactions.
Yeah, yeah. So I look forward to the, like, Nintendo earnings report come next year, and we find out that this was, like, Zelda and Odyssey sold really well, but, like, this game made like $2 billion in 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, it's a sad, weird trend, but everyone is down in those particular trenches. So yeah, I don't know. It's a camp. You can do tasks for people, and you live in a trailer. And, I assume Tom Nook will be there. And I really hope they channel all microtransactions through Tom Nook just to drive the point home.
Yeah. Just like, I hope that he just literally like somehow steals money from you. It's just like, but it's like all wrapped up in some like terms of service agreement that you actually have no legal recourse, and you try to take Tom Nook / Nintendo to court for it. It's like, no, like you totally signed off to pay him like $3 every day for the rest of your life, and like you fucking signed it. It's right there.
It would not surprise me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fucking motherfucker, Tom Nook.
All right, that's Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. I probably won't be playing it.
Yeah, me neither.
All right. Here's a fun piece of news, which is that a few weeks ago, David Lynch on his Twitter announced that Twin Peaks, what was called at the time the third season Blu-ray set, would be coming out December 5th on Blu-ray and DVD. And we finally got the official press release about it this week. They have redone the cover art, so it no longer says Twin Peaks the third season, because that was weird.
Yeah.
As I said before, my summary on that whole argument: seasons of TV do not air 27 years apart.
Yeah.
That's you can boil it all down to that. But then, so now it is called Twin Peaks, a limited event series, which is fine.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know why it's not just called Twin Peaks The Return.
Yeah.
But, that is, to be fair, that is what it was always called in, Showtime's press releases, so there's a reason it's called that. But really, I normally wouldn't talk about this, except it looks like a really cool Blu-ray set, because these days, when you get TV or most anything on Blu-ray or DVD, it's just the episodes and very little else. And they really went to town on this one, and that's pretty cool to me. So the Blu-ray series includes, obviously, all 18 episodes. One cool thing they did with those is that for the first 4 episodes, through seamless branching, you can watch those either as the individual hours that you would see on the app, or as the 2-hour versions that were on Showtime, the network.
Right.
And for parts 1 and 2, that's important, because those were clearly, I feel like, intended to be a 2-hour episode.
Absolutely.
Whereas all the other ones are probably good as just individual chunks. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting. I like that they've done that. And then the Blu-ray includes, among other special features, a 10-part journey behind the scenes of Twin Peaks called Impressions, which is 10 half-hour short films, as they're described, by the filmmaker. I don't see the name of the filmmaker, but anyway, there's some different things going on there. So those are all things like The Man with the Gray Elevated Hair, and The Number of Completion, and Bad Binoculars. And all of these are 30 minutes long, and I'm really curious to see what the hell they are.
Yeah.
Because they could be just more avant-garde shit. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I would love that. There's different pieces of extra, bonus content about, interviews with people. Charles de Lauzirika worked on this. He's the guy who's done every great DVD box set, like Blade Runner, we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yep.
That set from 2007 is him. It's got the Twin Peaks Comic-Con panel from 2017. All of the promos David Lynch made for the show, for Showtime, and other things. It is really, really exhaustive and complete. And I really love that they did that for Twin Peaks, because this is actually one show I was totally expecting this would be a bare bones thing.
Right.
Because, it did well on Showtime and had a lot of interest and hype, but even the best shows don't tend to get a lot on Blu-ray. But I think they know that the people who are going to be buying this are fairly motivated fans if you made it to the end of Twin Peaks The Return.
Absolutely. It is just it is a niche enough kind of product that you want to get that, you want to stick it to the fans, I guess, in a certain way of just we're going to make it impossible for you not to buy this thing, basically.
And I'm excited for it. Like I said before, I just want to see the episodes on Blu-ray.
Me too.
And a quality better than streaming. But I also love that there's 10 hours of bonus features, because that's cool. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if it is physically possible for a single person to watch more than 2 or 3 episodes of Twin Peaks The Return in a week, or their mind just explodes. I don't know, because I only watched 2. There was the first day, whereas the first 4 episodes, and by the end of that, I think I aged 5 years. So
yes.
I think this Blu-ray will be dangerous, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I will say, if you were waiting for the Blu-ray to watch Twin Peaks The Return and haven't listened to our discussions yet, don't binge it. Don't do it all at once.
Give yourself some time, really. That's
maybe a day between episodes, a couple hours, something like that.
Yeah.
Just pace yourselves.
Yeah, this is not just it's best experience. This is your own health concerns,
Here's just the thing. If you got, a box of LSD sent to you in the mail, you wouldn't take it all at once. That'd be crazy. Same thing with Twin Peaks.
Exactly.
Pretty much the same principle. David Lynch could tell you himself, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, quickly, Sean, we talked last week a lot about the closure of Visceral, the EA studio that was working on a new Star Wars game, had made the Dead Space franchise, all of that. And this week we got a huge dump of new information on this, which is that Jason Schreier, who we can apparently not stop talking about on this podcast.
Yeah, I feel like if he's like secretly listening to this podcast, it's like, I need to do something this week to make sure they talk about me.
Yeah, I mean, he just happens to be reporting on a lot of the things we talk about. Did a really long, in-depth take for Kotaku that frankly just reads like one of the chapters from his book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels.
It is basically like addendum chapter for Blood, Sweat, and Pixels.
That he wrote in a week, which is kind of amazing because there's a lot of good reporting in this. You'll hear from a lot of people who are working on the game, all anonymous sourcing because they are still active in the industry. And I thought it was a fascinating story and very much reminded me of the chapter in the book on Star Wars 1313. Although Star Wars 1313 was actually going fairly well in development.
Yeah.
But it's that same feeling of like you can see the collapse coming long before anyone on the ground is sure that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating story. What would you take away from it?
Yeah, it's that sort of thing of it makes all those like really quick hot takes about the death of single player games. I think it like makes you to be like, maybe you shouldn't just do your hot take immediately and wait to see more of what like actually happened, because there is obviously like there is stuff to talk about with that EA press release, and we read the whole thing and talked about it all last week on the podcast. But it is this like video games don't get shut down just because they're single player adventure games. Like that's not what happens. They get shut down for like, they are costing too much money. That is actually the reason they always get shut down, is they cost more money than it would ever be able to get in, or because they think the video game was never going to be made, which is what this report seems to indicate was this Project Ragtag, because again, they never had a title for it. It wasn't just that we never saw a title for that game. They never developed a title for the game internally. Like it was just known as Project Ragtag the whole time. That it seems like that game was never going to get made. Based on,
no, I mean,
not just be like, and not like to blame the developers, but also seems like EA like horrifically mismanaged that studio in a number of like critical ways. And one of the people like near the end of the report, one of the people that Jason Schreier interviewed, who are all anonymous for obvious reasons, basically said EA probably should have shut down this project like 2 years ago, because they were put in the situation of they pitched this like really expensive single player Uncharted level game that was going to be made by a studio that did not have the resources, either like in terms of like money and time, or like more critically in terms of staff and like experience to make this Uncharted level game. But they made that pitch, EA accepted that pitch, and then failed then to follow through enough to actually give them the resources to even try to finish that game, let alone like finish it and make it really good.
Because they had been like, the craziest part of the story to me is that this game was in like active development for like 3 years.
Yeah.
A really long, like the time a lot of games are made and finished in, and they had almost nothing to show for it. Like when EA Vancouver came down to try to help with the game, they were shocked like what was actually made, which was almost nothing. Like a lot of story stuff, but in terms of like playable, gameplay content, there was very, very little, because they were running up against all these different challenges. The biggest ones being they had a tiny fraction of the staff you would need. Visceral was based in San Francisco. It's way too expensive to live and make games in San Francisco. A game like Uncharted 4 would take like 300 people working on it. They had 50. All these different issues. I thought a lot of the stuff about Amy Hennig was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because no one like very clearly in the story, she's part of the reason the game fell apart, and no one has anything bad to say about her. It's that like and they all said like the one thing that would have been good about this game is the story, the thing that she was like number one there for, like that her vision for that was amazing, but just like she was not given the resources, but also not maybe had the right kind of experience to direct all the different parts of the game that, because of the crunch of like staff, she was having to take charge on. And that, she knew how to do things a certain way from Naughty Dog. This was not Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
They kind of, EA just expected she would bring Naughty Dog with her, and no one person can do that.
Yeah.
It's a super fascinating story, and also just makes me sad. Like, poor Amy Hennig. She's had 2 really rough development experiences in a row.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was some of the most interesting stuff, was that it seemed like they like literally restructured Visceral to be in the way that Naughty Dog is, where they don't have that sort of like producer middleman sort of position at Naughty Dog. It's sort of like a famous way that their studio is structured that's very different than most video game studios. And according to this report, that is one of the things that Visceral tried doing, and just seems like you can't just turn this other video game studio into Naughty Dog. Like, that's not possible, and also just like doesn't seem like the right thing to try to do in the middle of like video game development. It's like, let's just turn us into tiny like EA Naughty Dog. You can't just do that. Like, Naughty Dog is a studio that was built up over the course of like a decade plus to be like the Naughty Dog, like Uncharted Naughty Dog, that's like this Sony prestige studio. They didn't just turn into that overnight, you know?
And no one studio at EA can be that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe DICE to a certain degree, but they also don't get to spend 4 years on their artistic zombie game. You know, like, that's just not a thing. Naughty Dog is Sony's most important studio because their games go on the front of like console boxes.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's what sells the systems. There are very, 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 very few developers in the world who have that luxury, and they were never going to be that. And it's just one of the many interesting mistakes where, like, clearly no one went into this with incompetence or bad faith. It was it went off the rails. And I do think that quote about they should have canceled this 2 years ago is the most interesting part. Yeah. And that's probably when we talk about, like, where Mass Effect Andromeda comes into this discussion. Again, that's probably it, which is that EA probably should have taken a cold, hard look at that game at some point. And didn't, and they were forced to now when this happened.
Yeah, it just feels to me like EA is in this position where they are doing this thing of where they are greenlighting these projects and then not providing them the resources they need to like be what they need, what like EA wants them or expects them to be. But it's like, you need to, like, they're failing in their job as a publisher, according to like this report of that you need to like, you know, you need to deny the projects that you are not going to give the resources to complete. Like, you need to like look at all the projects that are like available to you that your studios are pitching to you, and you do not greenlight the ones that are like, this is the most expensive one and we're not going to put our full back behind it. Like, if you're going to go like take this big gamble and like try to make this big, like, risky single player game that's going to be extremely expensive to make and extremely time intensive to make, that you're going to have to hire a lot of staff and all this stuff to try to make this game, you have to either like fully commit behind that project or don't fucking greenlight it. And it seems like they just sort of greenlit it and then didn't put their support behind it and just let it, like, that studio linger in that for like 3 years, which seems hellish to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of the staff had left by the time this happened. Like, it was a dead studio walking.
Yeah.
You learn in this report. But yeah, really interesting. I'm glad that there is a semi-definitive account of this on the record now.
Yeah, that we don't have to sort of like play the guessing game of, did EA shut down the studio just because they don't want to make single-player games anymore, or because like maybe EA needs to take a big hard look at some of their like company-wide policies, like all their developers have to use Frostbite.
Because that's another thing.
Regardless of whether or not the Frostbite engine is ever made to make any game that is not a fucking Battlefield-style first-person shooter.
Yes. Anyway, we will see when Anthem comes out.
Yeah.
In 2021.
It does make you cautious for any other future EA title that is not Battlefront 2 or whatever the next Battlefield game is going to be.
Yeah, Battlefield 2. Because we just had Battlefield 1.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding. Yes.
Yeah.
World War II is very big, I hear.
Anyway, Sean, let's go ahead and talk about some video games. We're going to talk about Wolfenstein and Mario Odyssey. And I'm having allergies, and I'm really stuffy, and my voice hurts because I was leading this last section. So you're going to talk about Wolfenstein first.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So,
yeah.
Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. How is it?
It's really fucking good. It's an amazing game. So, like, just to sort of set it up for people who don't know a lot about these new Wolfenstein games, this is a sequel, being Wolfenstein 2, to Wolfenstein: The New Order, which is... The lineage of this is actually kind of complicated because it's like, obviously Wolfenstein 3D is like this classic original first-person shooter that, like, you know, that predates id, or that predates Doom from id by a couple of years. And then they kind of brought Wolfenstein back here and there over the years. Never like to huge fanfare, but there were a couple, like Return to Castle Wolfenstein was okay. But most of the other Wolfenstein games that I played were not that great. Then they had, like, relevant to this series of Wolfenstein games was Raven Software, made in 2008 a Wolfenstein game called Wolfenstein, which I did not play that game at all. It seemed like it kind of got okay reception, but was just sort of like a whatever first-person shooter that was, you know, like Wolfenstein asks Wolfenstein. You play BJ Blazkowicz in World War II fighting Nazis, and there's like Nazi magic and mysticism, occult, like Nazi occult stuff, which is a big Wolfenstein thing. And that was just kind of like whatever, that game. Then Machine Games, which is a new studio that is founded by a lot of the leads from Starbreeze that made The Darkness and Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, which are these really great sort of story-first, single-player, first-person shooters. They came together, made Machine Games, and Machine Games pitched to id and then got to make this new Wolfenstein game called Wolfenstein: The New Order. And the reason why I mentioned that 2008 Wolfenstein game is that Wolfenstein: The New Order and its sequel does technically have characters that originate in that 2008 Wolfenstein game, which is kind of fucking confusing when you start playing The New Order and you're like, who the fuck is General Death's Head? And then you go on like the Wolfenstein Wikipedia and you're like, oh, he's from the 2008 Wolfenstein game.
That would be like if I learned while playing the Tomb Raider reboot from 2013 that it had characters from one of the random Tomb Raiders.
Yeah, from like Tomb Raider Legends or something.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So it's like sort of a new continuity, but that has like a weird leftover things because there's General Death's Head and the Caroline, I think, are the two characters who are pretty, like, in Wolfenstein: The New Order in particular, like, those are two of the most significant characters in that game. They have some backstory. You can obviously play that game fine without knowing that, but it is a weird detail. But Wolfenstein: The New Order it came out in 2014, like I said, like, story-first kind of single-player first-person shooter that really turned Wolfenstein on its head, where at the end of the first two levels of that game, where you're playing as BJ Blazkowicz at the end of World War II, you are sort of defeated. The Nazis win in World War II because they have this cache of like super advanced technology that they've used to sort of just like basically win the tech race. They nuked Manhattan, which is a detail that you hear about in Wolfenstein: The New Order, that Wolfenstein 2 sort of goes into way more about like what that was and like the consequences of that. So they nuke Manhattan to sort of like force the United States into submission, and Germany wins the war. BJ is in a coma from like the end of those first two levels where he encounters General Death's Head, and then 20 years pass while he's in a coma. He's in this hospital, and this like sort of links up to how Wolfenstein 2 starts. Nazis come into this like mental health hospital where BJ is, and the Nazis have finally they're like, because they're fucking Nazis, they're not super good with mental illness, so they finally decide they just kill the two people running the husband and wife running the hospital, start killing all the patients, and when the Nazis show up and start doing some Nazi shit, that's when BJ Blazkowicz, just like from this 20-year coma, just wakes up and starts killing motherfuckers, kind of in a way that's like Doom. Like I
was going to say,
Doom.
That's very much like Doom 2016.
Yeah, it's like those jokes I was making about Phil Spencer, about he was summoned to
yes.
in the Connected when he has finished it, he is put back into his sarcophagus. It has that sort of feel, not in as like a weird religious way or something that the new Doom did it, but it does play with this idea of BJ Blazkowicz, Terror Billy as the Nazis know him, that he is this like Nazi killer through and through, and that is what he is, that is what he's good at, and when the Nazis are near him and fucking shit up, he's gonna get up and start killing those Nazis. And so that's sort of the setup of Wolfenstein: The New Order. It is all you sort of trying to build this resistance in this world that has been controlled by the Nazis for like 20 years or so. And over the course of that game, you're meeting all these like interesting characters. The game has this really crazy, really complicated tone that vacillates between like this really kind of like morbid and intense character drama of dealing with the realities of resistance in a world where you have already lost, and like the cost of human life living under a fascist regime, and having these really interesting characters that like BJ Blazkowicz is not just this meathead. He has like this whole sort of like interior personality, and he has this interior narration over the course of the game that gives you insight into who he is as a person that continues, and he's like a really fascinating character.
Now I'm imagining what that would look like if Doom had gone that direction.
Yeah, if Doom guy's just sort of talking to himself, it's like, the demons in my head again out in the world. I try to crush them, but no matter how many I crush, they always seem to crawl back up again. It's that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so over the course of that first game, you're sort of building that resistance, and the sort of complex tone comes from, you have some of that like really dark, like interesting, soulful character drama, but then also this like really like high tension, sort of pulpy, ridiculous sort of alt history sci-fi stuff of like in Wolfenstein: The New Order, there is a mission where you go attack a Nazi moon base that is like basically fucking Moonraker only with Nazis. It's fucking awesome. It's great.
I cannot wait for the next Daniel Craig James Bond movie, Moonraker, only with Nazis.
It's really fucking awesome. But like that gives you a sense of like the two places that game can go to is like there is a level where you are. It's not a concentration camp, but it's like evoking some of that stuff, and you go from that to going to the Nazi moon base, and that's like a complicated tightrope for like anything to walk, let alone a video game, where video games I think typically are very bad at trying to sort of do complicated tones and try to stick to a single tone for most of their story. Wolfenstein: The New Order did a really good job at balancing that, and at the end of that game, BJ is in like slight spoilers, but it's like nothing significant. BJ is pretty defeated. He's kind of on the verge of death. He has this really great sort of internal monologue where he's looking at Anya, who is this girl, like he's sort of like love interest, and they've had this relationship over the course of the game. And he recites that poem, that the line "The New Colossus" comes from, that refers to the Statue of Liberty. Like it's sort of like being like, oh, like you are going to have this torch, like this is it for me, but you, Anya, and the rest of this resistance, like what we have done here today, like you do not beat the Nazis at the end of Wolfenstein: The New Order. You don't even get close, but you sort of like light this torch for the resistance to carry forward in such a way that if they had never made a sequel, that's where it could have ended, like, and it would have been basically fine. But that game was fucking amazing, and so luckily they did make a sequel, and the Wolfenstein 2 picks up right where that leaves off, and like they go back and they do rescue BJ like right before he dies, but he is really fucked up, like his intestines are basically falling out by the time they get to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so this is that kind of game.
Yeah, this is like the first game was pretty grotesque, this game has some fucking shit in it.
This is the game you make when your first one was a success and you have unlimited creative freedom.
Yes, that is like maybe like the log line, or like the term for this game is confident. Like this is a supremely confident sequel where they went for some crazy shit in the first one and it worked. And so now they're like, oh, if we can go that crazy and it works, and what people liked about our game was that it was weird and that it had this strange tone and that it like had crazy shit like going to the Nazi moon base. If that's what they liked, let's take that fucking torch and let's run with it. And that's basically what this game is. So they get BJ and they sort of stitch him back together well enough. You're on like this German submarine, this giant German submarine that you captured over the course of Wolfenstein: The New Order. And like the beginning of this game is you kind of having to, slowly recover. I think it's like 5 or 6 months. So there's another small time jump there. But what's fucking amazing to me about this game is that the opening, like, is basically, again, you are recovering, and then the Nazis find your U-boat because they've been hunting for you, like, this resistance movement for that whole, like, intervening 5 months, and so they have finally attacked the submarine, and as soon as they attack the submarine, like, BJ Blazkowicz is like, well, fuck, like, gotta do this again, and he just hauls himself out of the bed, crawls into a wheelchair, grabs a submachine gun, and the whole first level of this game is you rolling around the submarine in a fucking wheelchair, you can't go upstairs, like there are like weird movement puzzles you have to solve to be able to navigate the interior of the submarine because you are in a wheelchair, all the while mowing down Nazis with this motherfucking submachine gun, while they are like talking about like, I heard Terror-Billy somewhere on this ship. It's like, no, he's just a myth. There's no way he's real. And then you just wheel around the fucking corner and blow them to fucking smithereens. And that's the first level of this game, is it starts from there. It starts from, again, the Nazis have showed up. Nazis are doing some Nazi fucking shit. And BJ Blazkowicz, no matter how fucked up he is, he cannot just take that line down. Even if he can't walk, he's going to enact vengeance upon the Nazis. And so that's sort of how this game gets set up. And I'm about halfway through the game, and most of the game feels like it is basically about going to America, because Wolfenstein: The New Order is basically all set in Western Europe. There's some stuff in England. I think there's a little bit of stuff in France, and a lot of it is around Berlin. And you hear about stuff that's going on in other parts of the world, but you never visit there, other than the moon, which is not part of the world. So that statement still stands. But in this game, it is almost, other than like those sections set on the U-boat, it's almost all been in America. And that has been the most fascinating part of this game. And I think they have 100% nailed what they're trying to go for, which is this, like, what does 1960s America look like when the Nazis have won World War II and the Nazis have come and taken over America. And it is basically a game about sort of looking at this very easy sort of dichotomy that people like to construct about like America and freedom and apple pies and baseball and all that good American, like proper American stuff on one side, and the Nazis and fascism and racism and violence and all that stuff as those being like in like control, that those being these like this binary opposition. And as we have learned over the course of 2017, that is not fucking the case, and that line is blurred, and that like white supremacy and racism and fascism and violence has a centuries-long tradition over the course. It's part of America's DNA. It's in our fucking Constitution. It's like how we built our country by slaughtering Native Americans, like
and slave labor.
Yeah, and slave labor. Like that is literally what this country was built out of, and you cannot like look at the Nazis and say that that's not us. And you can't have the Ku Klux Klan and look at the Nazis and say, that's not us. And this game is very much about, like, investigating that dichotomy.
So I have a couple of questions for you about this game. And one of them, the biggest one, is about this. You know, Wolfenstein II, obviously when they started developing this, they could not have known that this would be entering into the most fraught political climate possible.
Yeah, they would have started development of this game in 2014.
Yeah,
at the earliest.
You know, and obviously a lot of this stuff is always part of America, but like this game, there is no more relevant time for this game to come out, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, kudos to Bethesda, you know, the publisher, for allowing everyone working on this game to be very vocal about how they view things.
Yeah.
Because who knew when you started making a game about killing Nazis that there would be out and proud Nazis in America saying, well, it's really not helpful to hurt the Nazis and all that stuff.
There is a really great conversation a couple of Nazi soldiers had in the level I just played that is about that, about them being like, no, violence is wrong no matter what. Like I don't get how these terrorist rebels can be attacking us and saying like violence is you know, and using violence to try to stop violence. Like that doesn't even make sense. Like, you're fucking Nazis, motherfucker! What the fuck are you talking about? And then I threw a hatchet in his face.
Yeah, I mean, so I just want to ask you, like, one, how fucking cathartic is this game?
Oh, yeah.
And two, I mean, this game is on the highest wire possible in terms of political storytelling in a game in 2017.
Yeah.
How does it walk that tightrope?
I think it does it fantastically. Like, I think it's honestly, it's a fucking miracle, because it is that thing of that. I mean, it's something where I think if our political climate was not like this right now, and stuff of like that kind of like the alt-right and all that stuff was still underground in the way it was in 2014 with Gamergate and that kind of stuff, if it was still underground like that, I think for most people, they probably wouldn't even really notice a lot of what this game was doing with its story. They would just kind of be like, whatever. Because there is some stuff in Wolfenstein: The New Order with the character Jay that sort of, you know, spoiler, but I think I've already said this on this podcast once. He's Jimi Hendrix from this alternate future, or I guess it's like alternate future for BJ, but alternate past for us, who has, you know, grown up in this Nazi-controlled world, and he's a part of the resistance. And he has a couple of conversations with BJ Blazkowicz about like, yo, fuck you, man. Like I'm black. Like I was living under this before the Nazis were in power. Like this isn't something that's totally new for me. Like it's a higher level now, but this has always been my life. So like the first game had stuff about that, but was a lot of stuff that I don't think people paid attention to that much. And I think if this game came out in a very different political climate, I don't know if people would be like analyzing what it's doing with its story as well as it deserves. But since it is coming out in that political climate, it's like it's impossible not to see that in every single line of dialogue. And I think like every single instance I've seen it, they do it fucking perfectly. There's this whole thing they do at the very beginning of the game, and then I have very like recently gotten to the part of the game where they kind of bring it back into the forefront. But this game opens with while BJ is, you know, incapacitated, he's hallucinating and having these nightmares about his childhood, which is something you never really saw much in The New Order. He had some narration that kind of implied that he had a fucked up childhood in this like really memorable swimming sequence. But other than that, they didn't really touch on that in The New Order. And this game opens with these like series of nightmarish flashbacks where you find out that his dad was this abusive, racist motherfucker, because BJ grew up in Texas in like the 1920s. So it's like his dad is just like throwing around the N-word. His BJ's mom is Jewish, which is something you know from the first game, but you didn't really like interact with that much, and you see how in his childhood he saw the consequences of anti-Semitism and racism like up front and personal, and the consequences of that sort of fascistic violence need for, or like that fascistic need for control through violence, and he saw that enacted in his family and like through his whole childhood, and that is how that story starts. And then you kind of, after you get to America, you kind of revisit that in a couple of chapters. But it is like, that is what this game is about. Like, this game is about how that stuff that we blame the Nazis for, and that we like before 2017 just like put the Nazis up on this like villain pedestal of like they were fucking evil, but we defeated them, and they were evil in World War II, and they were so evil that like you can just shoot them in World War II first-person shooters, and nobody gives a shit, because who would give a shit about shooting Nazis because they were evil, but like we're not. And it looks at that and says like, well, like interrogate that for a second, and you will see that that's not entirely the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super interesting to me, because when this game was announced, and I had that great trailer at E3, which was awesome, but I still in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this the right moment for this game? Like, I know the first one was good, but like, there's every possibility this kind of thing could land with a thud now,
right?
And it sounds like it didn't. I mean, this was even more talked about and acclaimed than the last one.
Yeah, and that is also, I think this is a, like, as much as I love Wolfenstein: The New Order, I think this is a much better game, which is, like, both in terms of, I think the story is much more confident, it's stronger, I think it has, like, a more specific theme to target, whereas, like, The New Order was kind of about resistance in a very broad sense, and I think, like, sometimes it was hard to kind of pinpoint what exactly it was saying, other than this kind of like broad message about like the difficulty but necessity of resistance. And this game is like much more specifically about that, like, the white supremacy in America, like white supremacy and fascism in America, and how you like look at that lens next to the Nazis and how similar they are. Like, there's this one sequence as one of the most standout sequences of the game so far from a storytelling perspective, that you saw flashes of in that E3 trailer, which is you visit Roswell, New Mexico, and you're in the town, and it's on the day of the Nazi victory parade. And so you're walking around while this Nazi parade is happening, and you see like all these Nazi flags and stuff put up in this like small, like south, American town in the South. That's like, an image that at a place, if you're like me, that you have been to places like this. I have literally been to Roswell, New Mexico. And like, you see the Nazis marching around, and you see the Nazi flags, and you're walking around, and you just, obviously everybody's white, because it's like, no, you're not going to have any black people, you're not going to have any, Hispanic people, you're not going to have anybody of Arab descent. Like, there's nobody around, there's just all white people, and they're all like that same kind of like well-meaning like white Christian people that like is that sort of image of the South, and like everybody else has been removed or culled, and you are like walking around and just seeing these small vignettes of them talking, like oftentimes talking to these like Nazi soldiers and stuff. And one of the most sort of like chilling ones is you see this Nazi guy walking up and talking to two Ku Klux Klan members that are just like full on in the full get up, that have like dressed up to go attend the victory parade, and the Nazi guy is like complimenting them on like, oh yeah, like you guys are really good, like your message is like all this, like you have really committed yourself to the message. And then he says like, oh, like how is your German coming along? And the one Klan member's like, oh, I'm like great, I'm taking classes every Sunday. And the other guy's like, oh, how about you try to say thank you in German? And the guy like kind of stutters out this really awkward, vague like German, and the guy's like, try it again. No, try it again. And it's like, you learn your fucking German. And the other like Klan member pulls him away, and they go in and they play fucking pinball in this diner. And it's this really interesting scene that shows those sort of like power dynamics and that relationship of like, I mean, literally historically the Nazis took ideas from what the Klan was doing in America, but then it also shows that like for the Nazis, it's so much more just about the power play than it is about the specific like racial purity ideology. Like that racial purity ideology is just meant to be used for whatever is convenient for them in the moment. So you see this in another vignette in the sequence where this one woman is talking to another German soldier, and they're talking about all this stuff, and this guy's like, yeah, you're really smart, whatever, like this woman's name is, like, and you really know how to, like, your attitude is really, correct here, in this very sort of like fascist way of like, you understand the party line. You're saying everything right about racial purity and all this stuff. And then she gets a bit overzealous and says, like, oh, but I don't understand why we all tolerate this like one band or whatever. Because I mean, did you know that lead singer is Austrian? That's not proper German blood. And the guy says, well, you do know the Führer is Austrian, right? He's of Austrian descent by birth. And the lady's like, oh, I didn't mean. And they have this interaction where these basically says, you go home and you're going to be under watch of the secret police now, like, because you have just said that you do not insult the Führer. But it's like an utterly arbitrary line that she crossed, because in other contexts, yeah, the Austrians aren't pure Germans. Like, that is not this racially pure ideal that you're, appealing to. And that scene is full of these little conversations and vignettes that play with that power dynamic of how the Nazis will twist whatever situation they're in to just make sure that they're in like this height of power. Like they basically change the rules, whatever it is, like a fucking child on the playground, to say like, no, you don't win, I win, because this is what the rules are now. Like, no, you have to speak German. If you don't speak German, you're not like a proper white person anymore. Like, you're not like capital W white anymore if you don't speak German. And it's a fascinating game, and I think it's really smartly written at interrogating these like really hard questions to ask, but I think it asks them the right way.
I mean, I really do want to try to play this game before the end of the year for like top 10 consideration, and part of it for me is like, it just feels so interesting in this cultural moment for everything you're saying, of especially like, I'm so curious about how it represents all this as a video game, because video games as a medium, you and I both grew up, and so many people have grown up. Nazis are the things you shoot in video games. Yeah. Like, that's just a thing. Like, you can shoot Nazis, you can shoot zombies, you can shoot aliens. Those are always okay. Yeah. And if you go beyond that, then you have to do something different. Like, you can always shoot those three things. And you grow up with video games like that, and now we have a president who goes out there and says, no, the Nazis were very fine people.
Yeah.
Very fine people on both sides. The Nazis, the Klan, they're very fine people. And that's just such a different political moment to be playing a game where you shoot Nazis in. And I love hearing about this, and it's such an interesting thing, because it feels like the game is not unaware of that. I would love to see like a good piece of like a long journalistic article interviewing like the developers of this game, from when you started to when you released, and just like different inflection points, like Trump announces his candidacy, throughout the 2016 election night, Charleston, things like that. Like, you're making this game every day. How does that affect you? I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, and I would also just love to find out like at what point in the writing process some things came together, because in that Roswell, New Mexico bit, I found a piece of like a newspaper on the ground that you could sort of like, read, because you can pick up all these collectibles that like are little like bits of world building and stuff. And it was all about this report about once from like this German-run state press, because obviously, they're fascists. They're not into the idea of free press. So like once the Nazis took over, like free press went out in America, and it's all like state-run press. But they don't let anybody know that. But obviously, you can tell based on the writing that's like, oh, this is not some like journalist going out and making this hard-hitting report. This is something that the state told them to run this story. And it's this story about how now that the Nazis have taken over, that there is 0% false information in the press. Like, we have taken all before the Nazis took over, the American press was full of all of this misleading data. Well, like, basically, they don't say fake news, but they basically say fake news without actually saying those two words, like, right next to each other. And they say, but now that the Germans have taken over, according to this latest survey, there is 0% misleading information and false data in the press. It's like, and we now congratulate, the press of America for achieving this. And it's like, at what point in this game did someone write this thing? Because if they wrote this thing in like 2015, that's fucking amazing.
That's really prescient.
Like how prescient that is, because it's something that like you could totally write without the current political context, because it is something, if you understand about how the Nazis operated and how fascist states operate with the media, like that's how they work, and they do that kind of shit. They do that shit of saying like, no, we're like 100% accurate. Like we have checked, we are 100% accurate. There are 0% errors, which is always like a motherfucker. There's never 0% errors. Like like Einstein didn't have 0% errors. You know, like everything has like some percent of error. But you do that if you create this picture of like the perfect state that is like 100% perfect, never is in error, ever, ever, ever at all. And so you could write that note without the current political context of like what fake news means today. But then also, obviously, if they did write it later, like it fucking works.
I mean, that's one of the things that's interesting is that either they're very prescient and aware of the moment, or the right in America and Trump in particular and the people around him have played the fascist playbook so directly that all you have to do is study history and you're going to echo it. Exactly, and the only difference with Trump is that he's a really stupid fascist. Yeah. He's bad at it, but he is a fascist.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's... all that's interesting. But this leads me to one other question I have for you.
Okay.
I really want to play this game.
Yeah.
Do I have to have played The New Order?
I think so. Like, because I also think like it's worth playing. I think like it does. The new Colossus is definitely better. It's more focused. Like it feels like they know all these characters and stuff already, so it's builds off of that. But I think it would be hard to jump in on the story at this point. Like I think you could do it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that.
How long was The New Order? Like.
It probably like honestly, I would also be something that I would maybe recommend even just bumping down the New Order to like the easiest difficulty and just like blasting your way through that game, because that is actually a fun way to play it. But it's probably like at most 10 hours, and that's like if you get a bunch of collectibles and stuff.
So it's not like a 15-hour campaign.
No, yeah, you can again if you blow that down to easy and just run around dual wielding shotguns and blowing everything to bits, like.
I need to know this, and our listeners do too, because like now that the new one's out, you can get the old one on sale.
Exactly.
So it's like,
I would also recommend, so like this is something that the New Order did with the time jump thing, that once after those first two levels where you're in 1948, you make this choice over whether one character lives or one of two characters lives, and that sort of splits the timeline that determines a couple of like nothing sort of like major. It's not like the whole story is different in the rest of the New Order, but like obviously there's this one character that is there, and then there's a couple of other characters that show up that are connected to whichever character survived. And then at the beginning of the new Colossus, you are asked to sort of in this like previously on Wolfenstein segment, you're like, which one of these two people did you pick? I would recommend picking Wyatt personally. You're going to want to pick Fergus because Fergus is the more charismatic character, but I think Wyatt functions better in the plot. Particularly, I haven't seen what they do with Fergus in Wolfenstein II, but what they do with Wyatt in Wolfenstein II is fucking amazing. Also, if you pick Wyatt, that's how you meet Jimi Hendrix in Wolfenstein: The New Order. So that is the other big reason why you want to do that, because he's more interesting than the other character you get if you pick Fergus.
Nice. I can get Wolfenstein: The New Order as a 2-pack with the Old Blood expansion for $16 at Best Buy right now.
I never got around to playing that Old Blood thing, but it's supposed to be good. Maybe
Nice.
I should go back to that at some point. The other thing, before we move on to Mario, the other thing I need to talk about with Wolfenstein 2, because all I've talked about with the story is that, you know, like the story stuff is all great and fantastic, and the cutscenes are beautifully directed. The cutscenes are so fucking good. The acting is great. All that stuff's great. And also one thing, because I've mostly talked about all the serious stuff, the game also is very funny. Like it has there's one really quick sequence that is so fucking brilliant where there's these two characters having I don't want to spoil the whole moment, but there's two characters having this really like intense, dramatic conversation with one another. It's like one of them is BJ, and then in the middle of this frame, another character. Once you play the game, you'll know exactly what scene I'm talking about. But another character from the middle of the frame enters the scene in a very sudden way that is so fucking hilarious, that is set up so perfectly, that this game has a really sharp sense of like dark humor throughout that is needed because this game goes to some obviously like really heavy thematic places. But other than the story, this is a first-person shooter. This is a video game. And that is like also an area that I think they have made some really smart and subtle improvements, but it's like a huge like laundry list of smart, subtle improvements they made over the shooting of the first game that was like good, but maybe not excellent, to in this game I feel like they have really refined this really unique version of sort of first-person shooter gameplay and the kind of the pacing and flow of it that's really different than anything else. It's this blend of both like having some stealth stuff and you have like this ability to sort of sneak around and throw hatchets in people's faces because they thought, throwing knives were okay in the first game, but what's way cooler than a knife? Throwing a fucking hatchet at somebody. That's a fucked up thing to do. That's what you want to do to a Nazi. Like, a knife's whatever. Anybody would throw a knife at someone. It takes a really dedicated fucking motherfucker to throw a goddamn hatchet at someone's face. So you can do that, but then you shift into like full on action mode where you are just like pulling out like dual wielding assault rifles and just spraying like a maniac. And they've done some stuff in this game like made it so that you can dual wield any weapon with any other weapon. So instead of it just being like, oh, you have a shotgun and then you press up on the D-pad and you can dual wield a shotgun, now you can do that, but you can also go into the weapon wheel and select specifically, like, I want my assault rifle on my right hand and I want my grenade launcher on my left hand, and like, let's have a party. Like, then that's kind of what I've been doing in a lot of like when shit gets real. That's kind of the setup I've been going with, is just spray and pray with my assault rifle, and then like the like hard armored targets I sort of select and hit with my grenade launcher. But that flow of moving from like stealthy action with your hatchet and your silenced pistol to then going like balls to the wall, like I'm sprinting like a maniac, just like picking up armor pickups all over the place because you have armor pickups instead of like regenerating health, and just spraying all over the place. They've retooled the weapon upgrade system to make it so that you can instead of just kind of at different points in the story getting like story scripted weapon upgrades of like, okay, this is where I get the grenade launcher attachment on my assault rifle or whatever. Now you find pickups in the environment that you can use to selectively upgrade one of 3 things on each weapon. And that allows you to pick, if you want to be more precise with your shooting, you can pick the scope for your assault rifle. Or if you want to go like crazy with it, you can just say like, okay, like let's get this like extended magazine that makes my submachine gun have 90 shots in one clip, and just go crazy with it. And that ability of sort of trying to choose which mode you kind of tackle the combat encounters, I think they've just kind of expanded that and honed in on exactly the kind of the unique flow of combat that exists in these games, because it's very unlike anything else. It's not as like sort of insane and in your face as Doom was, but it's also not like, you know, duck behind cover, pop up, bop, 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 duck behind cover and regenerate health like Call of Duty is. It's in this interesting middle ground between those two places that I've never seen any other shooter occupy. And that was the more awkward part of the New Order, was it felt like sometimes it worked really well, but there were some encounters where it felt like I don't think they have fully found the balance here. That's the thing in Wolfenstein 2 that I've been most impressed by, is every single time I get into a combat encounter, I'm really excited because it's fun every single time and they throw something new at you every single time. So it's not just a like play it for the story and kind of ignore the gameplay thing, which is something I like enjoyed the combat in the New Order, but like is something I could say about that game. If you're not loving the gameplay, like that is definitely a bump down to easy and just blast your way through. In Wolfenstein 2, I think it is more like the story is fantastic and I think is the reason to come to this game, but you do stay for that gameplay and you do like that carries you through moment to moment. And when the story crescendos at this like triumphant moment of like, okay, yeah, let's go kill some motherfucking Nazis, which is something a character literally just said to me like 3 hours ago in that game. I was like, okay, yes, thank you, please. Yes, let me pick up this grenade launcher and I will go and kill some Nazis with you.
I've heard this game is violent, Sean.
It is very fucking violent. Both in the story, there's some fucking crazy shit that happens, and then also in the gameplay, you are just blowing people to bits.
I love that this game will be on a Nintendo console next year.
Oh, God,
it's going to be on the Switch. I love that you could feasibly switch from Mario Odyssey to blowing up Nazis.
It's a hard transition to make. Let's see how we do it, Jonathan.
All right, Super Mario Odyssey, in which you kill no Nazis, but you have a lot of fun.
How many sapient creatures do you murder over the course, or have you murdered over the course of Super Mario Odyssey?
Not many. It's not that kind of Mario game where like you're stomping on enemies constantly, because more what you're doing is you're inhabiting their soul and making their body do what you want. That's how you do this one. And then sometimes, you'll get a pile of Goombas and they'll have done the task for you. And then you throw them into a pit of lava and jump away because, Mario's got a little attitude like that.
Sure. So, he's got the mustache. Maybe what BJ's fighting against isn't just in Wolfenstein the New Colossus. Maybe it's in Super Mario Odyssey as well.
All right. So anyway, you just talked about Wolfenstein. I'm going to talk about Mario Odyssey. You had kept yours pretty much spoiler-free. I'm going to try to do the same with the caveat that Mario Odyssey is not a story-based game,
Right.
which means that what a spoiler is for this game is way broader.
Right.
And, look, my recommendation is, if you think you want to play Mario Odyssey, you probably know if you're going to go play it or not. If you've ever loved a Mario game, you're going to love this game. You should go play it. It's fantastic. It's one of the best games of the year, blah, blah, blah. If you're listening to this without having played the game or whatever, I'm not going to spoil anything that I would consider, like, crazy. I would never want that spoiled for me.
Right.
Like maybe some of the stuff, closer to the end or whatever. But I will have to bring up examples because I am talking about the game. So if you really want to go in cold, and then you can listen to this later. The game did just come out 3 days ago, so I totally get it. But let's talk about Mario Odyssey. You guys might have heard I was excited for this game. And I was.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you have talked about liking some Mario games in the past. Would you call yourself a fan of Mario video games, Jonathan?
I would say I am definitely a fan of Mario video games. I have even said on occasion that if forced to choose, Mario is my favorite game series. Because I love all the Mario games. I love, the 3D open world ones and the 3D more linear ones and the 3D space ones and all the 2D ones.
Management ones.
Never played that one, but I've watched the Angry Video Game Nerd episode about that and I laughed at it. So, it brought some joy into the world. But yes, my number one takeaway from Super Mario Odyssey, and I'll talk about the format and stuff like that, but you guys have seen what this game generally is that, and it's I mentioned this earlier on the show, that one of the things that's frustrated me a little bit in the critical conversation around this game is all the stuff about how, either it's a return to form for Mario, or like, finally another, open-ended 3D game like Mario 64, as if the last 20 years of Mario history just didn't happen.
Right.
Or things like that, when, yes, there is a lot of things about the format of Super Mario Odyssey that very much harken back to Mario 64 and feel like a 20 years later iteration on kind of some of the things that game laid down. At the same time, I don't think you can do a critical assessment of Mario Odyssey without noting that this game has pieces of every single Mario game in it. And it's one of the most fascinating and surprising things to me about the game is that it does not feel like it is one flavor of Mario it is giving you. It feels like all flavors of Mario collapsed into one, and it's giving them to you, in turn or all at the same time. Like, it is like, you used this term before on this show, Sean, because you're a very literary person. Yeah. It's like the Mario game to me.
Right.
Like, it is like all elements of Mario together. If you have ever liked anything about Mario, chances are you will find it here alongside so much more. Like, it can be totally that feeling of Mario 64 where you've got a big new level to explore and you just want to run in and around and see stuff, and you'll kind of find, the quest item by complete accident or something, and that's really cool. But it can also be like you'll be running around and then you'll get into a platforming scenario that feels straight out of Mario Galaxy. Like, you're like, oh, I'm playing Super Mario Galaxy 3 and it's in HD now and that's cool. Or you can be in another scenario kind of like that, but now it feels like it's out of Mario 3D Land or 3D World. Or you can be in an area where, like, you have to spray some stuff on some other stuff, and it's like, this is Mario Sunshine.
I thought you were going to say, and then you go into an area where, like, the camera is totally fucked, and you're just, like, and you're repeating the same objective for the fourth time in the road. You're like, oh, this is like Super Mario Sunshine.
The good parts of Super Mario Sunshine. That's what I meant. No, but yeah, you have that, or you've seen this in the trailers, and they're a much more substantial part of the game than you think, or than I thought at least. You will go into a wall, kind of like that mechanic in Link Between Worlds, the Zelda game, where you go 2D, but it's not just you go 2D, you are 8-bit original Super Mario Bros, and you have little side-scrolling parts, and you're doing that. Or there will be a part where, in the actual 3D environments, you pull something out of the ground, and it's a turnip, and you have to do something with it, and that's out of Mario 2. Like, all over the place, it is pulling things from the history of Mario, and it is doing that with, like, a lucidity and a fluidity that is just absolutely exhilarating, all wrapped in this beautiful package that puts no barriers whatsoever between you and just having fun with the game. And that's one of the biggest things to talk about here, that controls better than any other Mario game. Just that as I said, looks better. Not necessarily sounds better, because Mario Galaxy still is the king of the Mario soundtracks. But this one's got a pretty good soundtrack. Just all of it, like, it is a joy, and it does feel to me consistently like a celebration of Mario history, as well as being very forward-thinking, because there is not another 3D Mario game, or just mainline Super Mario game, to my knowledge, where you talk with and possess the bodies of real proportioned human beings. Among other things.
Yeah, I don't think I saw, like, I think, they maybe have made a body horror-based Mario game in the past, but not one that I played. That might be one of those weird, like, between Donkey Kong and Super Mario Brothers. It's like Wrecking Crew or something, like this weird sort of side Mario game that nobody remembers about. It's just like, yeah, that's the one where they like base it off of John Carpenter's The Thing, and Mario just sort of turns into other people.
Or, now that they've started, that there was a Mario game made by Ubisoft, we'll get a Mario game made by Bethesda, and it will be The Evil Within Waluigi. And it's a horror game, body horror game with Waluigi.
I mean, finally, the Luigi's Mansion 3 we've all been waiting for.
Yes. No, it's made by Hideo Kojima, and it's taking what that DP, what was it?
Silent Hills, the PT thing?
PT, not DP, that's a different thing. PT, and anyway, so anyway, what was I saying about Mario? So
I don't know.
It's this wonderful celebration of Mario history, and it is so clearly the people who made this game. I mean, the Mario team has been actually pretty consistent for the last 10, 15 years. Yoshiaki Koizumi has been the director and producer on these games for forever, and these people have gone through all these iterations of Mario, and it feels like now they're putting them all together and then adding so much on top, and it is just so masterful in what it sets out to do. So let's talk about the construction of this game,
right?
Because it is an interesting construction. It's or structure for the game. It's Mario 64-esque in that the game is a series of what the game calls kingdoms, which are really big open-ended levels.
Right.
It's not, the game is not as vast and sprawling as you might think from some of if you just look at the trailers and not actual gameplay demos and stuff. These are not endless worlds it's not 10 Breath of the Wilds with Mario in it, It's not that, and nor should it be. Mario would not be fun at that level of sprawl, but it's the right level of sprawl. They're obviously much bigger than Mario levels have ever been before. I remember as a kid thinking Bomb Battlefield was pretty big in Super Mario 64, and that's a corner of a level now. So they are these big sprawling kingdoms. And basically, that's where most of the gameplay takes place. This game does not have a hub world in the way Mario 64 or Sunshine did. It does have a ship that you go around on, the Odyssey, but even that is more stripped down. Galaxy 2 has a ship you travel in, but that is this little hub world you can run around on. That's not... The Odyssey has one room where you can go and change your costumes and you can put collectibles up and stuff. But other than that, the focus is... there's a series of things you select from, and you go in and you pick your level, and that's where all the gameplay takes place. And I think that's smart. It's very streamlined, and so you have these kingdoms. At the point, I should say, I haven't said how much I've played of this game. I have beat the game. I've hit credits. I've seen the credits roll, but just know. I've beat this game the same way when you say, I've beat Skyrim or something. That does not mean you are anywhere close to done with the game.
Yeah, you completed the main quest and saw the credits, but, there's still 500 moons or whatever there are to collect.
Well, I can give you a number. So I've got 234 power moons, which are the objectives in this game. Or that's what I had when I beat it. I have more than that now. But I beat it with 234. And that was playing, fairly thoroughly. I definitely could have beat it with way less than that. But that was, spending a good amount of time in each kingdom before I move on to the next one. Beat it with that. There are over 800 moons in this game.
Yeah.
So 234, I'm a quarter of the way through this game at most. There's a lot more stuff for me to do, and it does open up a lot of new stuff when you beat it. And the game is conscious of that more than other Mario games. The story doesn't completely end when the credits roll either.
Okay.
It keeps things, it's not just go back and find stuff. There's the world is evolving with you, and it's aware of that. And I like that. It feels...
Yeah, I like that too, because that was always one of the things that I have a problem in games of that I finished the game, and then it's now you can load your last save to that moment before you beat the last boss, and now you can go collect everything. And whenever the game does that, I'm well, now I don't really want to, because now it's I already won, I already did it, and so it's that's kind of one of the things that disappointed me about Breath of the Wild was that it didn't, that's kind of how it handled its in-game stuff. Is no, just I want to explore the world after I beat the boss and open up, it doesn't have to be the whole, a whole new game, but just open up some stuff so I can go see. And it's oh yeah, there's this area open now, and all these people have some different dialogue and stuff like that. I like when the game acknowledges that you've beaten it, and then you go back in to do everything else.
Absolutely, and this game is so good at encouraging you to 100% it, to go in and just find more stuff. And all of it is set up for that. But let's talk about the kingdoms, because that's what it's set up as. Like I said, at the point that I am, which is having beat the game, but I'm still getting more stuff, there are roughly 10 main kingdoms that are big levels with a certain number of power moons that are, are a threshold of them that you're going to find. And then there are some other smaller ones that are for boss fights and stuff. Okay. But let's say 10 major ones. And they're big and they are open, kind of in the way of Mario 64, but I think that's a completely inadequate way to describe what they are, if for no other reason than, again, it's 21 years later. Like, just the way we build those kinds of levels are very, very different. And the way I like to think of about it, especially now having had, a good amount of time with the game, is that each kingdom to me is constructed like this grand themed playground for you as Mario to go just have fun in. And there are always, like, the game is constructed linearly at first in that you go from one kingdom to the next. And I think that's smart. Like, I think it allows you to have this big open-ended sprawl, but not too much of it. Like, you have it in one kingdom, and then when you're, you've done enough there and you're ready, like, I want to see what's next, you go on and it brings you to the next one, and it allows them to do things like kind of ratchet up the difficulty a little bit and have, more complications going on, and that you have to use the skills you got in earlier ones later. But it also means that you're constantly having that open-endedness. This is something I also talked about with Metroid Samus Returns. I really like that game. Is also very exploration-focused, but in kind of chunks so that it's really open, but in enough of an ordered way that it has momentum that pushes you through. And that's a thing that this game does really well. But like I said, each kingdom, big kind of playground. Within each of those playgrounds, there are some larger objectives, especially the first time you go through, in that, like, Bowser has done something here, and you have to go fix that. And, like, the world will not be in its, like, permanent state until you do some things. And depending on the size of the kingdoms, there might be more things to do. But even within that, you can totally ignore that larger objective for as long as you want, or until you exhaust things to do, which could be a while, and just go explore and find moons and whatnot. And the way they do what the equivalent of power stars in this one is power moons. And you can find power moons for big things like beating one of those objectives, beating a boss, something like that. Or for little things like one of the ones in New Donk City is I'm on a rooftop looking around and I see a pile of garbage and I clear it out of the way and do a ground pound and there's a moon and, like, the objective marker is like, moon in a pile of garbage or something. And it's just things like...
Moon in a pile of garbage is one of my favorite pieces of modernist art.
It's probably more, it's better worded than that.
Yeah.
But it's something like that. So they can be very little, they can be very grand. There's a ton of them. Like comparing this to, like, Breath of the Wild, it's not quite like the shrines, which are like these, relatively big puzzle rooms. This is almost like the Korok seeds, but with way more types of ways to get them.
It's like in a middle point between the shrines and the Korok seeds.
Yes.
It's not just like the pick up a rock and there's a dude under it, but it's also not a full physics-based puzzle that you have to solve.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things this game does so intelligently over other Mario games, and I think a huge leg up it has, is that getting a power moon does not kick you back out anywhere else. You just get it, it tells you got it. Most of the time it's actually a very quick animation. Mario jumps up in the air, it shows you the name of the moon, it plays a little musical sting, it shows you the date you got it, that's all recorded, which is kind of fun because it's, again, this kind of adventure feel motif, like you got this adventure journal. And then you move on and you just keep going and you can get as many moons as you want, and then it will record them all when you go back to your ship and, like, give them to your ship, and then that will raise the overall number. That alone is like a godsend. It's a huge thing that this game does well, because I've always loved the Power Star stuff in the various 3D Mario games, but it can always feel a little clunky in some ways. Like when you go back to Mario 64, sometimes it's like, I could get in this layout of the level 3 stars, but I'm going to have to do parts of this over and over again to get that.
Yeah, like how many times have you, like, done that, like, walk up to the mountain in Bob-omb Battlefield or whatever, where there's, like, a bunch of stars you can get up over there. It's like, just let me fucking just get all these.
Right, and in Mario 64, they're all, like, it's one objective per run through the level. And Sunshine does it that way. Galaxy does it that way, although Galaxy is I think, makes better use of it because the level actually reconfigures itself for each one because they're a little more linear. But for instance, one thing that I've never been able to do this part of Galaxy 2 because it kind of annoys me is once you get the 120 base stars in Galaxy 2 and, like, 100% that part of the game, it unlocks a second series of 120 stars called the green stars, and those are just hidden at various points in the levels, but each time you find one, it kicks you back out. And those are super annoying because it's like, I would actually have fun with this if it was just me running around the level finding 3 green stars and then I could leave when I chose, but you can't. So you can kind of feel them, I think, building towards something like this, and now they've been able to do it where it's all just one persistent world you're out in, and these big levels, and you just find stars or moons as you get them. Again, they can be for little actions, they can be for much more substantial actions, but what it means is that, like I said, these are these playgrounds, and the point is largely to just let you loose and let you play however you want, go have fun, and you will be rewarded for it. You will be able to make progress by poking around whatever corner you want to poke around. And I think again, no matter what kind of Mario fan you are, that has to be fun. And part of that is because within those worlds, they've mixed so many styles of Mario gameplay. And I think this is where you have to consider, like, more than just it's a Mario 64 sequel. Because it's not. It's a sequel to that and Sunshine and Galaxy and 3D Land and 3D World and all of these. And that's because you'll go around and sometimes they are objectives like 64, or Sunshine, which is a bigger objective, like get up the mountain, you know? Right. But while you're going up the mountain, you might find a little side-scrolling part where you're 8-bit Mario. And yes, every single costume in the game transfers over to 8-bit Mario and looks fucking awesome. And I'll talk about the costumes soon, because the costumes are like, oh my god, they're so good. But anyway, you'll find that. Or you'll find like a little challenge room that you go in, and it might be something kind of like out of Galaxy or out of 3D Land, but it'll be like, more like a traditional Mario level where there's a platforming challenge. Even Sunshine did that a little bit, where it would have
it has the secret levels where you go in and it takes away FLUDD, and it has that really good jaunty version of the Mario theme.
It's very good jaunty. Yeah, I love that piece. I think we've used that on the show before.
Probably.
But yeah, it's a good theme. So it's kind of like that, or you'll solve little puzzles in the world, or you'll just have to complete an objective for someone. One of my favorites is that sticks out in my mind because it was a fun thing to discover, is in the Sand Kingdom, which is the second major one you go to. You'll be out in this big desert, and there's a guy standing there with this like little pen, and he's lost his sheep, and there's 3 sheep running around out in the world, and you have to go get the sheep and bring them back to the pen. And it's not as like tedious as it sounds. You really just like hit them with your hat and they like go flying, and just little things like that. So they can be all sorts of different objectives, but it means that there is inherently such variety boiled into everything you're doing in this game. Not just every kingdom is very distinct from every other kingdom, but the objectives you're doing within those kingdoms to get different power moons are really rich and varied. And obviously they didn't come up with like 800 completely singular objectives.
Right.
There are a lot that kind of repeat in different ways. But that's how a Mario game is. It's one thing you do here, and then it gets harder and harder, and you get that kind of feeling from it. And all of that is just awesome. It's just, I really think it's a perfect blend in terms of structure between the guided aspect of Mario, which for the vast majority of Mario's history, it's more guided than it is nonlinear.
Right.
And you can't ignore that. That's a good thing about Mario. But also those freeform elements that we love when we've seen them in the 3D games, and wish we could kind of get a little bit more of that. And they're constantly kind of alternating and pushing you forward. There's so much momentum. The game, and everything I've played so far, does not ever get boring for even a second. It never feels like there's a down moment. Every open world or open-ended game design out there, no matter how good the game is, has down moments. Mario Odyssey feels like it has very, very few. And I think that mix of the different styles and how they've put them all in these really dense open world environments, these big levels, is just awesome.
Yeah, like I have not played it, but I did watch a couple of videos. One in particular is on the Japanese Nintendo YouTube channel. That's a Game Center DX video that's attached to this show, Game Center CX, that I really like, this Japanese TV show where they play video games. And in that, the guy Hamaguchi was playing around in that desert level. And one of the things I liked was, one I think we'll get to talking about, like they showed there's this like boss in that level with these hands that
I was going to talk about that.
But then also, I like that there are kind of like what you're saying with the guy with the sheep, that there are some of the moons are like it's not like a story, but I like that there's like a character that is associated with some of this moons, that like you go and talk to this person and they'll tell you to do this thing, or they'll have like a weird bit of personality to them. And it's something that like I like in Mario games when you have some of that. Like obviously in like the Mario RPGs, like Paper Mario, it's all over the place because it's an RPG. But it's also like I like in Mario 64 when you go and talk to the Bob-ombs or the Koopa Troopa and stuff, and there's a like that little bit of like another character in the world, which is one of the things in Sunshine. Maybe it was just because I didn't like any of the Delfino people, but like that, those characters just felt like really bland to me, and it just like didn't resonate. And what I saw of Super Mario Odyssey, I liked when you could go up and talk to someone and they tell you something really goofy that you'd be like, oh, that means I need to do this to get this moon.
It's one of the best things about the game, because part of the structure is that each kingdom has a little society in it. Like there's a little town, there's a different kind of group of people who live there. The underwater kingdom, I forget what it's called. I just think of it as Zora's Domain, because it totally looks like this could be a Zora's Domain level from any, just pick a Zelda game, it would slide in there pretty nicely. And even the water people kind of look like Zoras from like one of the older Zelda games. And but that is one that totally, like, for me, you go in there and it feels like this is a little society and these people are different. And, from the people I've met, the other one, the desert level you were talking about has these, it's all like Day of the Dead themed from like Mexican culture. And there's these like little skeletons with macarenas and they have, the poncho and everything. And of course, there's always a themed costume you can get so you can fit in with the locals. And of course, this takes on a whole nother dimension when you get to New Donk City and everything that goes on there, because that place is crazy. But it really does, it does two things. One, it makes every kingdom really have its own identity. Like, there are kingdoms I like more than others, but I really loved every one of them. Like, it was always exciting to go to the next one and meet the locals and see kind of how it was laid out and what sort of things I could possess here and what kind of the gameplay elements were. And it all feels kind of an aesthetic piece, and also allows them to leverage that talent for writing that Mario has always had, but rarely kind of gets to exhibit in the 3D games. So all of that's great, but it also means that weirdly, like, this feels like a kind of unified world you're visiting, that it's a crazy version of Earth, but it's a planet that you go around that has all these different kind of communities, and you're going from place to place, and it's a big journey Odyssey game. You're going on an Odyssey around the world into all these places, and it means there's kind of a controlled lunacy to all the wackiness you see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to talk about how the game plays a little bit.
Okay.
The controls in this game are so good. And honestly, I would not have thought to make that point, except that, like, yesterday morning, my brother came into the room where I was playing this, and he just asked, like, how does this game control? Because he saw me doing, like, a crazy jump or something. And I hadn't even thought about it. It controls so good, I hadn't even thought about it. Like, it is, if you have ever played a 3D Mario game, you will just pick this up, and it's like you're not even holding a controller. It's like the synapses in your brain are firing, and Mario hears it and just does what you want him to do. It is so smooth. It has the entire jump arsenal going back from 64, that you've had in there. And it's just, he moves so well. He has, the jumps just feel like you can do kind of whatever with them. There's a lot of different ways to cheese jumps and get around corners. Like a jump that you would look at and think in another Mario game, like, realistically, I can't make that. I look at him like, I can probably make that. It's gonna take 10 minutes and it's gonna be embarrassing, but I can make that. And they will have put something up there because they know you can kind of cheese it. And part of that is because you have an additional move in this game, which is Cappy, your friend who is your hat, who can possess the souls of any living being.
Yep.
And you throw Cappy, and it's one of the basic gameplay things in this is, B and A jump, and X and Y throw Cappy. And throwing Cappy can kind of keep you in the air a little longer, and you can do a lot of jump things around that. But of course, the main thing Cappy does is that you throw him at things, and he possesses them. And I think the best indication of how well designed this game is and why this game should be like taught for how you use game mechanics, especially ones that seem non-intuitive at first, is that this game routinely takes big, crazy, outlandish ideas like, now I'm going to become a Goomba and jump on other Goombas, and it makes them so completely 100% intuitive. Like, an hour into this game, you are just completely on board with, this is how I play a Mario game. I throw my cap and I become a Goomba, or I become a Bullet Bill, or I become a weird, like, caterpillar thing that can extend and like, shorten its body, like I'm playing the game Snake Pass from earlier this year. That's what Mario is now. And it just feels so natural, and the game is so built to have all these parts of all the levels that you need to use some of the local flora or fauna to, like, become that and interact with the world, and they're all creative and they're all fun. And again, it just feels completely natural once you get into it. And that's crazy to me, because I remember I've been very excited for this game since it was announced. You've heard me talk about it. But I do think you look at, like, the original trailer for Odyssey and you're like, what the hell is going on? One, because this game looks crazy. And two, kind of in the back of your mind, you're like, this is probably going to be great. But that possession thing, like, how does that actually work as a game mechanic? Because I think in a lot of games, it would be like you do it and then, like, an animation plays, and it just does something for you, and it's not actually a gameplay thing. No, this is a really deeply ingrained game mechanic in this video game of possessing things and playing as them and doing long parts of the game as different animals and whatnot, and solving puzzles by getting enough Goombas stacked onto one another. Or, later in the game, there's this one animal that you get that is almost has, like, it has this, like, it's a bird with, like, this long nose that can stick into things, and it's kind of like, in Tomb Raider, you take your pickaxe and jump up things.
Sure.
It's like there's an animal that does that for you. And there's all these different things like that, and it just feels so natural and fun and surprising consistently. And that's kind of amazing to me, because that is probably the biggest risk this game takes. And leave it to Nintendo. This is what they do well. When they commit to, like, a new game idea with Mario especially, they really do follow it to the ends of the earth and make it such a integrated part of the game, like all the gravity mechanics in Galaxy or something like that.
Right. But the other part from what I've seen that I like is that, because I think the other reaction you could have had from those trailers is being like, that looks cool, but also like, I don't want that to be all I do in this game. Like, I don't want to play this whole game as a Goomba or a Koopa Troopa or whatever as like the Mario enemies, and then like every once in a while I'm running around as Mario. Almost in the way that like in some of like the Sonic 3D Sonic games, you're like, I want to play as Sonic, I don't want to play as every other character, and like, only sometimes I play as Sonic. But it seems like you do, like, the core of the game is you are Mario-ass Mario, and then you very briefly turn into a Goomba to accomplish a short objective and then transition back into Mario to be someone else.
Totally. I was worried about that, too, because especially once I started getting cool costumes, I'm like, I want to see the costume.
Right.
And you do. Like, yeah, you do have to turn into things routinely, and it's a major... But it's like jumping or something. It's a major mechanic, but you always go back to baseline your Mario. And yes, much of the game is completable just as Mario. There are just things in the world, kind of like how you would have to get a power-up somewhere in an older game. And there are no power-ups in this one. There's no... Other things to talk about structurally they've done is they've completely gotten rid of the life system.
Right, yeah.
Good fucking riddance. Like, it's especially... I love the Mario games to death, but it definitely got to a point, I think, with and after Galaxy, where I would look at, like, the one-up thing, and I would just be like, this makes no sense anymore. Because all I'm trying to do is complete this level. Obviously, it's going to send me back. That's not what I'm complaining about. It's that this is this arbitrary life system where when I've, lost enough of those, it just kicks me out of the game, makes me go through the menus and get back to this point again.
Right.
That's not challenge. That's bureaucracy, and 3D Land and World have that kind of issue too. All the new Super Mario Bros. Games, it just was unnecessary because the punishment for like dying should be having to redo the section, not redo vast sections, you know? And so they've done a really smart thing here where when you die, you do go back, depending on where you are in a more linear section or non-linear section, it depends on how far you go. And you also lose 10 coins from your coin total as like a little, punishment.
Resurrection fee.
Yeah, resurrection fee. But that's it. And, but everything else about kind of how it feels to play those, or like what it feels to die and go back, that largely feels the same, just without every 20 minutes or hour or whatever you get a game over and have to see the menu again.
Right.
I think that's very smart.
Yeah, it's a long time coming.
Yes. So, Breath of the Wild also obviously has done away with things like that. I mean, there's a game over, but you don't have some of the same, like, it's streamlined is what I'm trying to say.
It checkpoints instead of just being like, oh, you have, like, once you go into the dungeon, that's the only checkpoint you have.
Right, something like that. So, anyway, but also, so that's all the gameplay. It's wonderful. One of the best things about Odyssey, though, is it is so surprising. In that it is constantly, even if you think you've seen it all from the ads and stuff, and I stopped watching like the trailers and demos at a certain point, so depending on how much you've consumed, maybe this won't be the case, but you are constantly getting stuff thrown at you that is surprising and fun and funny, and just, I had the biggest smile on my face playing through this whole fucking game, because it is constantly doing little things in the world that just, the amount of creativity going on in this game is incredible. Where you see this manifested a lot. I mean, there's the little things like just running around like the Sand Kingdom, and you'll see all the cool art design, and then you'll get on a roof, and someone has a radio, and if you stand next to the radio, Mario dances to it. And there's funny things like that. Or in the Metro Kingdom, when you jump on the roof of a car, you do a giant jump, and Mario has probably totaled that person's car. Just these little environmental things that are really funny. But then there are the bigger things. And actually, the thing I was going to use as an example of this is what you mentioned earlier, which is the fight with the hands.
Yeah.
There's a very famous boss in Mario 64 that was also used it's based on a boss from A Link to the Past. It's been used in Zelda and Mario games where there's a head with two hands and the two hands come out and hurt you. It's in like every Mario game. There's a very memorable stretch of Galaxy where you do something with this. It's in that 64 sandcastle level. Well, in the Sand Kingdom, there's this whole part where you have to go way underground and do all these things, and then you see that basic enemy type, that boss type. And I'm like, okay, well, this is the point in this Mario game where we fight an enemy with two, like, disembodied hands.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then it starts, and I'm, the hands are coming down, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, and there's this crystal on each hand. I'm like, oh, do I have to smash that or something? Like, I try ground pounding, I can't get up on it. I'm like, okay, I should probably throw Cappy. Maybe Cappy will damage the crystal. Throw Cappy. I'm the hand now!
I'm the hand.
You're the hand, you go around and you can accelerate, and what you're supposed to do is go up to the face and punch it with its own hand.
Yep.
This is a great video game, Sean.
And it's something that, like, seeing that and hearing, like vague stuff about some of, like I haven't heard any of the specifics of later bosses in the game, but just, like, a general sentiment of, like, oh, the bosses in this game
bosses
are
are so good.
Is heartening to me, because that's one thing that, like, Mario games sometimes have, like, a couple of good boss fights, but generally I don't think of Mario games as being like, oh, the boss fights in Mario is really good. Like, like, sometimes there are ones that are okay, but, like, the Bowser fights in Mario 64 are like, it's fine, I guess. It's, like, whatever. But, like, that's one of always the things I feel like was one of my, as someone who was an ardent Sonic fan as a kid, who's like, no, but the boss fights in Sonic are, like, just way better than the boss fights in Mario. And it's really cool to, like, one, like, seeing that one being like, that looks like a fucking awesome boss fight, and just hearing that the boss fights in general are really good. That just feels like finally Mario has gotten there. That's like, the boss fights are just awesome.
It's definitely, like, if there's one superlative I can give Mario Odyssey over every other Mario game that's just easy, the boss fights are the best. Like, it's not even a contest. I agree. I love Mario games, and the boss fights are just usually an afterthought. Like, it's not even really a major part of the games that you really think about a lot. You just kind of go through. Like, Yoshi's Island has way better boss fights than any other 2D Mario game. Like, it's usually at the spin-offs you get more interesting boss fights.
Right.
Mario Galaxy has some good ones, but even then, they're not my favorite parts. But you get to this, like, the boss fights are really, really fun. Some are better than others, but, like, one of the things they do really well is because the way you first go through a kingdom, there is often some central objective. Something you learn in that kingdom, no matter how you approach that kingdom, there's going to be some central mechanic with possession or something you find in the world, and that will then become integral to how you do the boss fight. So by the time you get to any of the boss fights in Mario Odyssey, the game has taught you how to do that boss fight. And it doesn't have to do any, like, overt signaling, like in Mario 64 where Bowser says, haha, don't grab me by the tail and throw me, you won't be able to defeat me that way, and that's how you figure out that's what you're supposed to do.
You mean his reverse psychology didn't work?
Yeah. No, it's just that you have these instincts, you see what is there on the field for you, and it's like, okay, I can do this. And there are just some crazy, wonderful, exhilarating ones. There is one in the Luncheon Kingdom that involves the main possession thing, which is like this fireball you possess. And I'm not even going to spoil how it happens. It's fucking amazing how that boss fight unfolds. And when you realize what you have to do, I just wanted to, like, stand up and cheer. It's so good. And just consistently, this game is so smart, it's so creative, it's so beautiful, and it has so many cool things to throw at you. And just the basic process of playing it is so fun. It's very much to me like, in terms of what it rewards in my brain, a lot like Breath of the Wild, in that it does a great job rewarding curiosity and exploration, but in an even more, like, focused way here. Because chances are, if you're in one of these kingdoms and you notice something and you try to figure it out, or you think there's something you can do with it, they've thought of it, you will get something out of it, and more importantly, you will have fun doing it every single time. And that's just a really unique, wonderful experience. Like, last night I was playing through, I think it's called the Seaside Kingdom, which is the Kingdom of Bubble Lane, which is this, like, beach with an ocean that is made of, like, carbonated water. It's a whole, story thing.
Sure.
And that was one of my favorite kingdoms in the game. It's like, it's smaller than a lot of the other ones, but it's dense. It's, like, packed with things to do, and of course it's got a land and a sea portion. And I just got to a point where, especially once I beat the main objective, and then, like, the time of day shifts a little, and from there on out, the game, that area takes place at, like, sunset, and it's this really gorgeous sunset, and it's got this beautiful piece of music that totally sounds like it could be one of the Zora's domain themes from Zelda. And you put that all together, and I'm running around getting moons and having fun, and I just, like, I was kind of overwhelmed by, like, the sheer, pure big-heartedness of this game, that it so wants you to have fun, and it is so joyous and happy, but also it is a, muscular, excellent piece of game design, and has so much to reward you with if you put in the effort. It's incredible. I love all the kingdoms, as I said. My three favorites would definitely be the one I just mentioned, the Seaside Kingdom, the Luncheon Kingdom, which is relatively late in the game, and when I first saw it, it's like a kingdom made of, like, foods and things, right. And I thought it looked kind of dumb, and then you get into it, it's like, oh, this is actually their take on a fire level, because all the, like, purple sea goop stuff, which looks really cool, that's like lava in a different Mario game, and because you can possess and actually go through the lava with, like, a little fireball, they go way further with this one than they've ever done a fire level before in a 3D Mario game. And it's a tremendous kingdom, and all the stuff you can do there is amazing. And then, of course, the best part of the game is the Metro Kingdom, New Donk City. Like, I think we all could have expected that.
Right.
And it's again, no put down to the other kingdoms. They're all amazing. But New Donk City is like an out-of-body experience. It's like, there's that point, and there's another point in the game later on that feels like someone on the staff of Mario Odyssey really loves the Sonic Adventure games, and they also want another Sonic Adventure game from Sega, and this is their small way of saying, do it, or we're going to keep beating you to it, guys. We made it. Because that city totally looks like something out of like Sonic Adventure 1, but now you're playing through it as Mario, and it is such a surreal experience to have this big open city environment that is like half Sonic Adventure, half Grand Theft Auto without the misogyny. And, you're running around it, but it's as Mario, and everything in it is built for the basic Mario controls you know and love. So it looks unrecognizable, and it plays like a complete dream, and the amount of secrets they've packed in there, and all the moons you get, and all the puzzles you solve, and all the platforming challenges are just so creative and well-themed to this skyscraper city, urban design. It's insane how good it is. It's just one of the best levels ever put in a video game, full stop. It's incredible. And there's kind of several of those in this game. It really is a masterpiece. I love it. I mentioned the music. It's not like, I don't think it's on par with Galaxy, which had way more music, Galaxy was famous for having the symphonic music that was done with like a 70-piece orchestra and stuff.
Right.
And Galaxy is a more symphonic game because it's smaller levels and it's got more sort of forward momentum to itself, and all of that makes sense. But it does have some very good music here. I won't spoil what Bowser's Kingdom is because it's amazing the direction they chose to go, but it's amazing, and the music there is really amazing. So it's great, and the surprises continue all the way to the end. There's some stuff they do in like with the last boss and what happens after that made me laugh so hard and has such a good ending. And then when you get past that and into the end game and all the stuff you can do past that, the things that open up are so interesting and surprising. The way they, I think, choose to leverage Princess Peach in this game is awesome and hilarious. I'll just say that if you're frustrated, it's another Mario game where Peach is like kidnapped.
Right.
They know.
Okay.
They know. And they will kind of make up for it at the end. It's cool. But yeah, it's Super Mario Odyssey. It's an amazing, amazing game. And I'm now looking at my list of games for the year. I, Jonathan Lack, lover of certain franchises, has to choose between Mario, Persona, Zelda, Metroid, Fire Emblem, and others, Uncharted, etc., for Game of the Year, and rank all these. And I don't want to. They're all so good.
Yeah, like the night before I started playing Wolfenstein II, I opened up a Word document that I had like from like the summer or something, where I had started putting in the games I was playing. I was like, okay, I have a whole bunch of new games to put in here, and I just made a section of like, okay, the games I still need to play, that I want to play before the end of the year, and I just like oh fuck. And like, this is like kind of like last year. There's a lot of games that you have played that I haven't, and I've played that you haven't, and won't be able to by the end of the year. It's like, what the fuck?
It's nuts. It's so nuts. And especially for me, having gotten the Nintendo Switch this year, I was looking forward to the Switch. Nothing could have prepared me for the year this system has had. Because there's obviously the two big pillars of Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey.
Right.
And, those are going to be in pretty much every Game of the Year discussion, and rightfully so. I think they're amazing. I don't know how to choose between them at this moment. I've got a lot more Mario Odyssey to play. Again, like, beating the game is really only the start of it, and I'm excited to talk more about it in the weeks to come. But you've got that, and then smaller things like Splatoon 2 and Mario plus Rabbids and Fire Emblem Warriors, and then all the indie games they've had. Like, I haven't even had my PS4 plugged in for 2 months at the moment. And it's not that I don't want to play PS4 games, it's just that I've been busy with Switch stuff and 3DS stuff, and just as a lifelong Nintendo fan, this is going to be one of those years that goes down in gaming history, I think, for the industry, but also for Nintendo. This would be like if they did Ocarina of Time and Mario 64 the same year, not 2 years apart. It's insane.
Yeah. And then on the reverse side of that, when I looked at my list, like 80 to 90% of my list are PS4 PC exclusive.
Yeah.
It's like Neo, Persona 5, Nier Automata, Gravity Rush 2, Yakuza 0, and Yakuza Kiwami. Like, most of my list are only available on the PS4, or if they're available on something else, it's the PC.
We have, at the moment, and Nintendo kind of didn't even have a ramp up to this. They just started this year where, I mean, you have the 3DS has been this way for years, but like you have Sony with this extremely healthy, vibrant, exclusive scene on the PS4. Nintendo has one. Xbox is out of the picture at the moment. Yeah. But like just those two alone is too much for any one person to keep up with. But it's great. I mean, boy, if you're on the fence about getting the Nintendo Switch and you have any inkling of you would like the kind of games that are on it, I can't recommend it highly enough. And I, normally wouldn't get to say that the first year of a new console, but it's a great system. Mario Odyssey, I've mostly played docked at this point because it's new, but I have played a couple hours handheld and it plays great. As you mentioned, there was some controversy around this.
The motion control stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you my opinion on this. I don't think it's a big deal. Like, it doesn't take... The way the motion controls work is that most motion control things in the game have a button version, like you can fling Cappy with your Joy-Con, or you can press Y, but then there are like supplemental controls to things where the Joy-Con will let you move faster, or like you can kind of home in on something with Cappy with the motion controls. They work best with the separated Joy-Cons, but the Pro Controller works okay for them as well. Very rarely do I feel the actual need, like strategically, like that's something I have to pull out and use. And when you're playing just with it on the TV, it's always fine if you have to do that. You just fling the controller a little bit, and it doesn't bother me that much. As someone who like played Galaxy 1 and 2 to death, it's really familiar for me from how those games use like the spin controls.
Right.
The problem is, this is on the Switch, which is ideally also a handheld console where you have the controllers connected to it, and shaking it would be very awkward.
Yeah.
And I can say that because it does feel weird to shake my expensive piece of hardware.
Yeah, especially like if you think about someone doing it on the bus or something and just like smacking someone in the face with their Switch because they're trying to curve Cappy.
Yeah, I don't want it to scare anyone away from the game. Like, it's not overbearing. It's even like Galaxy, that was a regular move you had to do.
Right.
That's the regular move you have to do. You can just press Y, and you'll be fine 95% of the time. So it is not a game breaker for me or a deal breaker at all. I do wish they had a solution where you could just map some of those other things onto buttons, because it has plenty of them. Like A, B, and X, Y are completely repeated. They're A and B do the same thing, X and Y do the same thing. It should just be an option. I would not be surprised if they patched that in. It would be an easy patch. They could do it. It's just, I also like, for me, like, I play it handheld a lot, but I know there's also people who play it way more handheld than even I do. Like,
I have seen anecdotally a lot of people talking about online that like, oh, I only ever play the Switch handheld because that's the only time I ever have to play video games.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Or people might live in an apartment with other people and not have access to the TV or something. Like, there are completely valid reasons why you would use the Switch just as a handheld, and every game should ideally work equally well in both modes, if not like with all the visual flair and everything.
Right.
Actually, Mario Odyssey, visually gorgeous. It runs at a solid 60 FPS, handheld or docked, which is a kind of tremendous feat of engineering in this day and age. And I think it looks very good on the handheld screen as well. It takes a little hit in resolution and stuff, but that's how it works.
Right.
So the motion controls, it's fine. It's just, it's a little... I'm honestly surprised Nintendo didn't think of that.
Because it seems like Mario Odyssey is such a just like polished to perfection kind of game that it seems weird, that like would have snuck through somehow.
Because like Breath of the Wild has motion controls, but almost every one of them you can either turn them off and just use the controller sticks or something, or when on occasion there's a puzzle that uses motion controls.
Right.
On the Switch, like, that's actually very easy handheld because they make it so that it's like a tablet you're moving. So, like, you never really think of it. Like, that one, they really felt like they thought through where the motion controls work and don't. Like, you don't have to like them, but it's not an impediment playing it handheld to use those.
Right.
This just... And also Mario Odyssey being, like, their big flagship title for the fall... and it does show off the Switch's capabilities great. It's a really fun game to play handheld. You can pick it up for 5 minutes and make a ton of progress because of the nature of the game. It's just that if you ever hit a moment where it's like, oh, it'd be nice to use the motion controls, shake the whole system, it's like, that's weird. That doesn't feel right.
It's like, I really hope these Joy-Cons are stuck on here tight.
It's actually kind of funny. I was playing this up at my... we were up at my stepdad's house for dinner the other night, and so I brought my Switch with me, and I was playing that for like an hour or two. And there was one moment where I'm like, okay, I could probably find a way around this without motion controls, but it's just like my instincts tell me this is the easiest way to do it. So I just pulled the Joy-Con off, put the thing on my lap, and did it like that. It worked fine. I did it. And it's just like, at least, you can do that with the Switch. You just take the controllers off and you've got a little TV. But obviously, you should not have to do that.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is a completely polished game in every other regard. So it's just a little surprising, which is why I said it would not surprise me if they patched that in. Nintendo is new to some internet things. They have done patches before.
Yes, they have done a few.
Yes, they have done patches. That's not a new thing. So we'll see. I'd love DLC for this game. Like, I think knowing how well they've done DLC for some of their other flagships, like maybe a new kingdom is too much to ask for, but they could totally find fun ways with this. And I've also been thinking about, like, where should Mario go next? And I think this is totally a scenario where, like, Galaxy had Galaxy 2. I don't want every future Mario game to be an Odyssey game, but I think there's more than enough gas in this not trunk.
Tank.
There it is. Gas in this tank.
You do in Wolfenstein 2, you get your grenade launcher is a big thing that you actually just pump gas into to like shoot like capsules of gas at people that explode on impact. So I'm very familiar with gas tanks and diesel tanks recently.
All right. No more than enough gas in this particular tank that I think you could easily do an Odyssey 2, kind of like Galaxy 2, and just take all the leftover ideas, polish them up, and make a game out of it.
Right.
I'd love to see that. But for now, I'm just excited to go back home and play more Mario Odyssey, because it is fucking great.
I think we all know the next step they need to take, which is, of course, Super Luigi Odyssey.
I'm really curious if Luigi is in this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, obviously, but my gut reaction would say no if you haven't seen him as like a character somewhere.
Well, I don't know. I mean, both Galaxies have him playable, 3D Land and World have him playable, so it would be a break with recent precedent, at least, to not have Luigi in there somewhere. I'm also curious if I'm going to see Yoshi. Like, there's just a bunch of things like, yes, I have seen the credits. Clearly, there's so much more for me to do. Like, one of the things it does is it still gives you some objectives, like, it's a much bigger number now. I don't need 20 moons to proceed. I need 200 or something for, like, some new big thing is going to unlock. I really wonder what that's going to be. So who knows? But I'm going to keep doing the Odyssey. It's a fun game. You're going to keep killing Nazis with Wolfenstein 2.
Oh, yeah. I am really excited to see where the fuck that game is going to go, because based on the cutscene I saw before we started recording this podcast, that fucking game has got a lot of stuff to do.
Sean, one last thing before we wrap.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of want to pour one out for Assassin's Creed Origins, and the fact that I'm not going to have time to play it, even though it looks very good.
Yeah, like, it is something of, like, I was watching some footage of that since it came out on Friday. I was just like, I wonder how this game is, and it was something looking at it like, fuck, I didn't fully account for how enticing the ancient Egypt setting was for me. It was this thing that, like, gets me every single time with Assassin's Creed, is like, why do no fucking, like, big budget video games do historical settings? God damn it. And they finally, for the first time in like 8 years or something, picked a setting that wasn't just like the next like century forward in like Western European history / like American history. It's like we finally went to somewhere else. And yeah, I don't know if I will find the time to play it by the end of the year at all.
If I can, I'm going to try. It looks so good. I would love to play it. It's just my top 10 list is already packed enough, and my wallet hurts enough. And I've got more games pre-ordered. Sonic Forces is coming out, and that's going to be an easy enough one to fit in. I really want to play it. Skyrim is coming out on Switch. I kind of want to spend some time with that.
Yeah, I mean, I need to finish Wolfenstein 2, and then I need to immediately go back into Neo and finish Neo and the DLC for Neo.
And I want to play Wolfenstein 2, which means I have to play Wolfenstein 1, so, these things add up. I don't know. It's great. One thing I like about Mario Odyssey is that, especially having seen the credits, I will be able to play this game in, like, fits and starts. And I won't have to I'm not gonna have to obsess over this game the way I would other ones, which is always nice.
You can be an utter maniac, and like while you're playing Wolfenstein, when you get to a cutscene in Wolfenstein, you put the PS4 controller down, pick up your Switch, and watch the Wolfenstein cutscene while you're playing Mario Odyssey. If you need to 100% optimize your time, I would in no way advise this, because the cutscenes are amazing in Wolfenstein. But if you're a freak of nature, you can do it.
I think the Nintendo Switch has taught us the best way to play a Hideo Kojima game, though. Which is that if you have to, like, for some reason go back and play Metal Gear Solid 4, just have your Switch with you, and you can, like, beat an indie game in the time it takes for any given cutscene to play out.
I mean, in that instance, you might as well just go watch, like, the Metal Gear Solid 4 movie edit on YouTube than play the game. But
yes.
Yeah.
They're not that different, Sean.
Yeah. It's a brave world out there. You can just play a video game while you're doing anything else whenever you want to. It's maybe not a healthy attitude to have, but you can do it.
All right. So, Sean, next week, We'll continue talking about this. No, you know what? Next week is Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's right. Thor comes out next week. So
Jesus.
yeah, that's right. Movies that are things too. I forgot. I've spent like 3 to 4 weeks in a fucking video game coma. I forgot that movies are things we do also on this podcast.
You excited for Thor Ragnarok?
Oh god, yeah.
It looks so good. And then we get Justice League the week after that.
That might be okay. That movie's only like 2 hours long, so
I will say, how surprised were you that they got that thing down under 2 hours?
I'll believe it when I see it for 2 hours.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But we'll find out. Anyway, we're rambling. Games are good. Mario's good. Wolfenstein's good. Let's go kill some Nazis / possess some bullet bills.
Yeah. I'm still just over here thinking about, I think at the end of Wolfenstein 2, the only way that game can end is if he goes and he finally ends Mario's reign of fascist tyranny over the land of the Goombas.